All right, folks, if everybody can take their seat, we'd like to start the meeting. All right, thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If everybody join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. By way of announcements, the public is hereby advised of the audio and video recording of this meeting for the purposes of rebroadcasting. There was an executive session of the board held in the Farina Building on September 24th for the purposes of discussing matters of contract negotiations with the Methacton Education Association. In terms of attendance, we have a few people missing. Mr. Roth is out of town on business. Mr. Dorn. Mr. Dorn is out of town on business. I'm not ignoring you, Herb. I apologize. We have Mr. Dorn out of town on business. We have Miss Aubrey Larson-East on the phone. Can you hear us okay, Kim?
Kim, can you hear okay? Kim, are you there?
I'm here. Sorry, I couldn't get my phone off of mute.
The mute button. And we have Mr. Phillips on the phone as well. Jim, can you hear us okay?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. Thank you. In terms of recognition of guests and scheduled speakers, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Zerby now.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good evening, everyone. Tonight we have several presentations, first being the Academic Achievement Recognition Awards for high school students. This evening we have high school principal Dr. Jason Sogini to present M Awards. Dr. Sogini?
Good evening, Dr. Zerby, members of the board, and members of the public. I'm honored this evening to present the students who earned M Awards for academic achievement for the 2016-2017 school year. These students earned an overall GPA of 93% or better. What I will do is present the students by grade level. I'll ask that the students come forward and stand in the front here and receive their certificate. After you receive your certificate, please stay in the front. We'll do a picture with each grade level afterwards. Members of the audience, I'll ask that you hold your applause until I've read all the members of each grade level. And we will start with last year's 9th grade, this year's 10th graders. Nicholas Allum, Rachel Alderfer, Michael Ashleman, Kristen Bricky, Samuel Burkheimer, Amanda Burkholder, Macy Chambers, Naya Cherry, Elizabeth Chipman, Ashley Choi, Julianne Choi, Camille Connard, Srinati Dandabatla, Angelo DePep, Nicole Dorn, Caitlin Duda, Celia Duggar, David Ellis, Caitlin Evans,
Can't keep up.
it's a lot of names. Brendan Faraji, Siani Ford Barkley, Catherine Gable, Daniel Geib, Ashley Goon, Sangeetha Gopi, Henry Grawl, Ethan Gritzula, Nicole Harrison, Catherine Hayward, Derek Hossain, Anna Jacobs, Abhishek Japrada, Eliana Joseph, Sagan Kakar, Anna Kamenetz, Jessica Carr, Juliana Keenan, Hannah Kim, Elizabeth Kirsch, Julia Kramer, Alexander Laconi, Alyssa Lanter, Zoe LaPaglia, Matthew Lausch, Alexandra Laurie, Savannah Lehman, Ethan Lewinson, Karen Lee, Kirsten Luttrell, Amy Lonsdale, Alexa Marburger, Olivia Masser, Madison Mathis, Matthew Mature, Catherine McGrath, Corinne Meyer, Rachel Miller, Ryan Morgan, Luke Murray, V. Wynn, Caleb Nice, Reese O'Brien, Catherine O'Connor, Andrew Oletsky, Rachel O'Toole, Luke Ownsworth, Stella Peck, Jeffrey Pan, Pablo Parientes, Miti Patel, Shreya Patil, Caroline Pelicano, Rachel Przaki, Thomas Rieger, Paul John Rossetti, Leonardo Ruzzi, David Sang, Aisha Shah, Shazeb Zadiki, Ashmitha Sivakumar, Jaywok Song, Zachary Sorgini, who didn't get home from practice in time to be here, Kaushik Srinath, Tara Sringari, Anna Steele, Riley Steer, Parker Stevenson, Laura Thorne, Arushi Tawari, Sydney Tobin, Michael Torsini, Matthew Sy, Claire C., Ashley Upani, Mega Varghese, Andrew Wang, Joshua Watt, Cecilia Weaver, Elias Weissman, Jeffrey Woodward, Sarah Woolston, Annie Jang, Nicole Jang, Vincent Jeng, Joanna Jang, Sophia Zhu, Madeline Ziegler. How about a round of applause for our current 10th graders? Good. Congratulations. Thank you for coming tonight. Our next group will be last year's 10th grade, our current juniors. Caitlin Alano, Stephen Bile, Davron Borhan, Stephen Brown, Danielle Burkholder, Garrett Campbell, Matthew Capice, Kathleen Cawley, Jonathan Cheng, Thomas Chimes, Benjamin Christian, Lindsay Koya, Jaideep Dillip, Carolyn Ditzler, Kenneth Donahue, Alexander Drummond, Emma Eglinton, Daniel Falvo, Sarah Fleck, Alden Ford, Howard Fu, Chandler Gibbs, Hannah Gibbs, Raja Geedy, Saket Gokhale, Alexis Gordon, Alexis Gordon, Zachary Griffin, Jonathan Groff, Allison Gumieni, Samantha Haas, Sophia Haybarth, Catherine Hamilton, Erin Hardenberg, Anna Hillis, Grace Hurst, Aaron Hollidge, Julia Jablonski, Megan Kaliner, Tyler Kratz, Hira Katalk, Angie Kong, Dahlia Leos, Olivia Lieber, Brian Lee, Damon Leeson, Ashley Liu, Yu Liu, Ryan Lloyd, Julia Malachowski, Max Markowitz, Joseph Maschantonio, Sean McCann, Lauren McNichol, Garrett McPhillips, Ryan McShane, Leland Mirsky, Nelson Nav, Sarah Nice, Dina Nuemi, Amy Yu Yang, Kendall Ozarowski, Ishan Patel, Jamin Patel, Tulsi Patel, James Pellegrino, John Pellegrino, Christina Popkowitz, Jason Q, Logan Rambo, Trevor Rambo, Anurag Rao, William Riebert, Jennifer Reed, Sean Ritchie, Samantha Roberto, Nicholas Ronio, Jen LaRuitt, Sydney Ryan, Anna Rue, Harsha Santhaman, Christopher Sarpong, Mary Schlenker, Molly Seitz, Michaela Senderak, Deshna Shah, Connor Smith, Elijah Smith, Riley Smith, Rebecca Sobek, Colby Stahl, Sophia Stillman, Justin Sue, Sean Sykes, Tai Tran, Muskan Upal, Nia Bagvala, Aaron Vale, Rebecca Varghese, William Verna, Kim Vo, Michael Zhu, Victoria Jang, Stephen Jang, Aaron Jang, Adam Jang, Joshua Jong, Maria Zhu. And a round of applause for our current juniors. Congratulations and thank you for coming tonight. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, last year's juniors, members of our current senior class. Justina Adams, Chantel Alano, Gretchen Alderfer, Elise Alexander, Zaina Ali, Jordan Armstrong, Megan Ashleman, Chusha Bai, Catherine Bailey, Sayla Baranek, Hadley Barber, Dean Bartow, Karan Bardwaj, Preeti Boba, Juliana Bove, Sonia Boyle, Julie Byrne, Olivia Cardarelli, Aaron Casanova, Andrea Castaneda, Jonna Castellano, Matthew Chan, all of our seniors are still at practice, William Chen, Allison Christian, Rosa Copa, Joseph Costello, Sophia Diadesi, Pierce Dale, Ananth Dandabatla, Malika Dinakar, Amy Dominic, Brianna Donahue, Rachel Dorn, Kushi Doshi, Sonali Dukley, Mark Egan, Mark Engelman, Julia Garcia, Samuel Geiser, William Goulian, Mackenzie Henry, Olivia Hoover, Jessica Hughes, Madison Humphrey, Claire Jablonski, Eric Jaworski, Tricia Jang, Stephen Jin, Maxwell Jones, Rebecca Joseph, Kylie Kakala, Satvik Kakar, Kira Kapler, Evelyn Kiefer, John Keenan, Paul Kamada, Hannah Kirsch, Kelly Kernick, Jillian Kratz, Maya Kumar, Sahas Kurameti, Alexis Laconi, Michael Lawler, Emma Laurie, Justin Legan, Ruth Lee, Ashley Livingston, Ariadna Lohr, Amy Liu, Peter Luba, Franziska Bunglu, Caitlin McClure, Ann McGarvey, Jessica McKay, Nevin Mendes, Ani Machini, Cole Moore, Chloe Musselman, Anurag Nagkarni, Joshua Newman, Perry Newman, Sarah Nicoletti, Michael Noble, Amanda Oleski, Levi O'Neill, Sayuri Padmanabhan, Abigail Perriello, Kim Van Pham, Anna Price, Catherine Price, Lauren Przaki, Bernadette Ray, Ashiut Reddy, Benjamin Ripley, Isabel Roshan, Mariah Romano, Michael Rossetti, Jezreel Sarangan, Peter Seefeld, Isabella Segarra, Abby Shaw, Jalen Shin, Colin Schrader, Madison Shuffler, Dhruv Stringari, Brendan Stanton, Victoria Stillman, Allison Sue, Shri Krishna Suresh, Sijal Suri, Jessica Talamo, Rachel Thornton, Tammy Soy, Daniel Wang, Jeremy Wang, Caleb Watt, Karthik Yegnish, Jillian Zerby, Kevin Jang, Kevin Zhao, Mary Juyang. Round of applause for our current seniors, please. Given the level of academic rigor that our students undertake, it's no small feat to achieve a 93 overall GPA. We're very proud of our students. Thank you very much.
Just as an announcement, we are rescheduling the Arcola M Awards for a date in October. We apologize for having to reschedule that, but as always, this opportunity to recognize our students pays tribute to all the hard work of our students and our faculty, our teachers, our parents, and the community here in Methacton for helping these students be the best that they can be, and we appreciate their efforts and efforts of everyone involved. Next on the agenda, we have the National Association of Music Merchants, NAM, Best Communities for Education 2017 Award. This evening, we have Mr. Kelly, and we have Mr. McCoach. Is Mr. McCoach with us as well?
Bring him on. Come on.
Yeah.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Nice, thank you. Congratulations. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Wow, wow. Thank you. Thank you. I'll get those guitars. Thank you. Thank you. Wow.
Good evening. I promise I won't be as long as Dr. Sorgini, but try to be brief. My name is Tom Kelly. I'm the education representative for Zeswitz Music, a member of the National Association of Music Merchants. I'm trying to get the right balance here on the microphone. I come here tonight before you to really recognize the Methacton School District in a way that not too many school districts across the country get an opportunity to do. The NAM Foundation was created 12 years ago. And this was a part of NAM that school districts could actually apply for their status in terms of what they offer the students, soup to nuts, K-12, band, chorus, orchestra, performance opportunities, the way they work, how many people are involved, and not too many actually get this award. It's very rigorous, as Mrs. Baslick, department chair, will tell you. I'm sure she had help from the rest of her staff to actually go through this process. It's 27 pages of a lot of questions from enrollment to performance opportunity. It's quite lengthy. I actually went through it myself, and it takes time. I tell you, I can't imagine the hours that were put into it. Of the 13,500 school districts that are in the United States, several thousand apply for this. I'm very proud to say that the Methacton School District was one of only 427 to actually get this award. And quite a task it is. It starts in the kindergarten room with general music. The choral programs, both the band and orchestral programs here. I personally have had an opportunity to work with these people, most of them, some of them, for 28 years. I've been working with the Methacton School District in several different capacities. Some of the students that were getting the academic awards tonight I had the opportunity, I worked with the marching band way back in 1998. I was 12 back then. As up to the last few years, as Mr. McCoach has taken over for Mr. Mascaro in the recent years. So it's great to see that. I wanted to jump up and ask each class, how many of you were in band, chorus, or orchestra going up? I think what's key is even as early as 1983, USA Today did an article and polled the Fortune 500 CEOs. These are leaders of our country in terms of corporate America, and 92% of them were involved in music. It's an astonishing thing. Music makes you smarter. It really does. It prepares you. It's teamwork, dedication. So the constant support of the staff, the parents, the students, the administration, we hope to continue to do this for the Methacton School District. I do have a placard. There was a press kit that was available, and it says, the NAM Foundation salutes the Methacton School District for outstanding support of music education, enriching the lives of children and advancing student achievement. So congratulations to the staff. So, in closing, it's an honor to be here. I will present this to Dr. Zerbe, and he can pass it on down. Again, there's a big press kit. I encourage you to place this in schools and all around, because, again, music makes you smarter, and it makes the world a better place. So, congratulations. Thank you. All right.
I love how music teachers all step to this.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Again, thank you, Mr. Kelly, and thank you to Zeswitz Music and to our music department. Ms. Baslik, thank you. You've been a superb leader for the department, and we look forward to many future awards and achievements from our students and our department. Next on the agenda, we do have a check presentation this evening from the Methacton Education Foundation. Ms. Lynch, and I think there's Mr. President and members of the foundation are available here this evening.
I'll ask Mr. Beam to introduce the members of the board.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Jim Beam. I'm the president of the Methacton Education Foundation. Many of you know a good bit about the foundation. Some of you do not. And I just want to take a minute to tell you that the foundation is the bridge that connects our distinguished faculty with the school board and the Methacton community as a whole. And the foundation's objective is to fill in the gaps where the school district's budget just doesn't go. And it focuses on academics, athletics, and the arts. So what we just witnessed, both with academics and the arts, is incredibly important and something that the foundation is very proud to help support in its own way. And you will hear in future more about ways in which the foundation is going to help out in those areas. But tonight, I want to tell you about something that is very, very special. Methacton has a diverse student body population. Some of our students are incredibly fortunate in every respect. Some of our students are less fortunate in a number of respects, including in the areas of nutrition. And there's a program that's been in existence for a number of years called the Backpack Program, and it seeks to help those students who are challenged and have needs in those areas. Well, like any other program, we need money. And money has been provided by a number of sources, but earlier this year, two wonderful women, two wonderful mothers who are parents of children in our district put their heads together. And they said, we need to do more. And so while I finish this, I'm going to ask Tracy Courtney and Karen Merrow to make their way up here, please. So I'm going to keep talking about them while they come up. They came up with an idea. They came up with an idea of saying, okay, we need more money. What can we do? They decided to have a 5K run/walk. And it was just the two of them, and they were working it out, and they contacted us, and we said, boy, we would really like to be a part of this as well. So they have partnered with the foundation, and they took something that was just a little bitty seed, and they grew it, and with enthusiasm and planning and dedication and a lot of hard work and a lot of help from our distinguished faculty, many of whom were there on exactly 1 month ago, August 26th, on a beautiful Saturday morning. We had many of our faculty participate. We had a number of our school board members participate, which was really wonderful. Our superintendent participated along with his family, and other members of the community were there as well. It was a tremendous turnout, and thanks to what these ladies started, we raised over $10,000. And I'd like to say, they did it. And so to Tracy and Karen, I say thank you on behalf of the foundation and on behalf of our faculty and our school board and the rest of the community. What you did was wonderful, and it just goes to show what can happen when we all work together as a group to make this place, this Methacton community, the special community it is. So they have some great plans in the future, and Karen, I want you to just say a couple words. Just a couple words, please.
Thanks, Jim. Tracy and I just want to say thank you to everyone. It was really a group effort from everyone, from the teachers, friends, families, our sponsors, the foundation, and the entire Methacton community. It was really a group community effort, and we had a gorgeous day, and it exceeded our expectations, and we're planning already for next year and hope we even have an even bigger turnout. So we just want to say thank you again for everyone's support and everyone who helped out, and hope to see you next year. Thank you.
And as we bring this forward, I just want to tell you very quickly, we have two members of our foundation who are part of our distinguished faculty, Barbie Griffith and Stephanie Sawyer. Chris Boardman from the board is on it, and of course Dr. Zerby and Angela Lynch from the administration are on the foundation board. In addition to that, we have from the community, our wonderful community volunteers, James Arnow and Gary Gallagher, and I'm delighted to introduce to all of you tonight the lady holding the check back here is Marisol Lezcano. She is our new executive director, and she is a fabulous person. You will hear a lot more about her in the upcoming months. So the actual amount of the check is $10,081.35. Well done, ladies.
Mr. Beam, it's my understanding that there's another check
Where'd he go?
to present.
You're raising money, you don't even know how much.
You remember what that one was for? Mr. Moneybag.
Well, I'm sorry, I got carried away with the ladies and what they had done, and I almost forgot. The foundation has also been active at, again, the foundation, as you're going to hear more and more in the future, there are so many programs and so many areas where Methacton does so well, and so many areas where it can use additional help from other sources. And so tonight, I'm very pleased to present to the school board from the foundation, hey, where'd it go here? Okay. A check for $2,900 from the Autistic Support Program here at Methacton. So there we go.
Again, thank you to the Education Foundation. They are a significant member of this Methacton community. Their board helps support, as Mr. Beam has suggested, many programs within the district, and they're really on a fast track now to raise some substantial dollars and help our student body in a number of ways. So we appreciate their efforts, and we look forward to the future with the Education Foundation. Next on the agenda, we have the Master Plan Bonding Financing presentation. This evening we have our financial advisors from PFM and the rest of the team to come forward and present to the board on the financing options related to the master plan.
Well, those are tough acts to follow, but I'm Glenn Williard from PFM, Allison Mackey, Scott Kramer from RBC, and John Cox from Rhodes and Son, your bond counsel. We have a handout that I laid in front of you. I'll just try to summarize it quickly, and then we can go from there. But we started working with the Finance Committee about a year ago. We were looking at debt restructurings as well as some new money financings. After looking at the restructuring of the 2011 bonds, the committee asked us to just look at a refunding and not a restructuring. So what's in front of you this evening is what we call a high to low refunding, from high interest rates to low interest rates. There's no extension of the debt. It pays off at the same time and just produces some interest rate savings. But the handout shows a little over $100,000, and hopefully if the market stays where it is, we'll do a little bit better than that. There's also a schedule in here for $8.5 million of new money that we could secure that this calendar year. It'd be available for next year's capital projects and fits within the what you have in your budget. As part of this, keeping the bonds bank qualified, which is a special IRS designation, you need to issue $10 million or less of new money, and then there's an exception for the refunding bond issue, which we're able to fit into that exception. So we can do both of these bank qualified. One caveat is you need to do the transactions at least 15 days apart, so we have a schedule that accomplishes that, and it can all be done before December 31st. The IRS rules are for a calendar year. So this would use your allocation for calendar year 17. The funds would be, the new money would be available prior to the end of the year, and then in 2018, depending on how things went, you'd have the option or the ability to do additional financing at some point during 2018. So that's a summary of what's here. Are there any questions on that?
Any questions from members of the board at this time?
One question for me. So if we go ahead and approve the financing for the $8.5 million, are we incurring any costs before we start actually utilizing that? So if we approve that, before the end of this year, are we paying anything on that prior to us utilizing it?
Well, the debt service payments begin accruing from whatever settlement is. I think we have it in mid-December. So the interest payments would begin accruing. They're due, I think it's March 1 would be the first interest payment. Is that helpful?
And when do we plan on starting to spend that? Would that be for summer projects or from our perspective?
Well, I think some of the spend may be constituted in the use of having the bid documents and other engineering / professional services done in advance of the actual work being taken place. So it's possible that we would be spending some of that money before the summer does arrive, but a majority of it would be spent in the summer months. So there is oh, I'm sorry, Brenda, do you want to go?
So when we settle on the new money sometime in December, is there any mechanism for us to be able to have that invested until such time in some other source so that we can minimize the cost of the interest from the time we get it until we need to use it? Say if we're doing $8.5 million and we need $500,000 for the soft cost during the short time, could we just automatically do something with the $8 million?
Yes, absolutely. You're permitted to reinvest the proceeds. So whenever settlement is, that day it would go into certain investments designed to maximize the interest before you'd spend it down. That's right.
And just related to the presentation here this evening, there is an action item on the agenda on page 3 under the master plan, and I don't know if you want to explain that action item and what that will entail, and then take us through the rest of the steps.
Okay, why don't I do that? So page 1 just shows you interest rates. They're very attractive. Page 2 shows you a snapshot of all your other bond issues that you have, and in column number 30 on page 2, that's what was in the run rate for debt service before any ESCO projects before last year's budget. You put some money into the budget, but that's what's in there now, and we're going to show you wraparound bond issues, wrapping around what's shown in column 30 there. A few more pages. On page number 3, I think I talked about much of what's in the top half. One point there in number 6A, the 2011 bonds are attractive if you were to do a debt restructuring only because they have large payments. So if we don't do that, we refund those bonds now. It will be a little bit harder to come back a year from now or 2 years from now and do a restructuring. We'd have to look at other bonds. Those are good for that, but we would do a high to low refunding, and that would sort of use that bond issue up. In terms of the timing at the bottom of page 3, tonight we're just looking for sort of, I'll call it a nod to proceed. October 17th, we would come back with legal documents, that will be, I'll say, final form. And then we'll walk you through those, and on October 24th, we'd be looking for you to approve that paperwork, which would be the last step the board would need to take at October 24th meeting. And then somewhere, the schedule, somewhere around October 31, November 21, we would actually go out and secure the interest rates on those two different bond issues, and then the settlement would be around December 5th and December 21. Again, we have to close before December 31 for both of these to be bank qualified. So that would be the schedule and your action item is just to tell us to proceed. Okay? Just quickly, on page 6, this is the refinancing of the 2011 bonds. The savings are in column number 10. Some of the savings occurs in the current budget year, and some of the savings will occur in the next budget year, the budget year we'll start working on soon. So that's the refinancing piece. And then the new money piece is Schedule 9, page 9. On this page, this is what the new money repayment schedule would look like, and we call this a wraparound in column number 9. That was at column 30 on, I think it was page 2. And then what happens is, as column 9, you see your run rates around $9,000,001 as it drops off 6 or 8 years out. We then have larger principal payments in column number 2, and so in column number 10 then, this is the wraparound setup that the Finance Committee asked us to put together. This is for the first part of your financing plan, and then if you turn to the next page, there's a pro forma of what it might look like if you did 9 future transactions over the next 10 years, each one being about an $8.5 million wraparound. You're not committed to this. You'd have the ability to change, speed it up, slow it down, cancel it, whatever you choose to do. This is just to this is what the Finance Committee was looking at just as a what if. And then column 11 is the sum of all of those payments. The highest run, you're at $9,000,001 now, and this would take you up to about $11,000,009 10 years out. Any questions?
Mr. Phillips, go ahead.
Yes. Regarding the bond, if the school district settles into a contract which year 2 and 3 our budget's going to be $1 million short, the first question is, if they use any of this bond money to add money to cover that shortfall, is there any restrictive covenants? Is it legal to use that bond money if we have a labor contract that makes our budget fall short for each of the year 2 and 3 of $1 million apiece? The second question is, if the school district is entering into a contract that it's going to adversely affect the budget, where we're going to be short $1 million in year 2 and 3, how does that affect our bond rating?
Well, on the first question, if I understand it right, so the proceeds of the bonds can be used for any capital project, and you can change and amend that as you go forward, but it can't be used to balance the budget, if that's what the question was.
Shift the money around, how is that audited to make sure that that money is not being used to offset somewhere in the budget?
Well, you'd have the state auditors, but perhaps more importantly, the IRS, in theory, can audit your bond issue and declare the bonds taxable if you don't follow all the tax-exempt rules. So you would covenant in the paperwork that you're going to follow all the IRS rules. You are permitted to have capitalized interest during the construction period, so you could take some of this money and use it to pay interest in the 1 or 2 years during construction if you wanted to, but once construction is completed, it can't be used for anything else then. And
to the second question, as far as our bond rating, entering into a bad contract where we're going to have a shortfall where we might not be able to meet the Act 1 index or tax enough to where we have to start cutting programs or closing buildings to so we can balance our budget. How's that factor into our bond rating?
Well, what the rating agencies do look at the overall budget of the district, your capital plans, what's in the teachers' contracts, and we're assuming you'd keep your AA rating that you have right now. It is something the rating agencies would look at, but how they'd come out on that, I don't know right now. It will be a factor.
Is there any concern on your end? I know we're a taxing authority, but is there any concern on your end, being that we're in the middle of a contract negotiations, and that at the end of the day, we might be in a position that we will not be able to find that money to pay the bills?
Well, I think for the first bond issue, the one that we're talking about settling this year, it's my understanding that you have put in some money into the budget, so it appears to be enough to pay the payments, the millage impact for this first bond issue.
Okay.
Are there any other questions from members of the board? Right.
Just one question as a follow-up from the Finance Committee meeting. Did we look into the leases? I know there was some question about some of the leases that we had.
Yes, good question. The IRS rules take into account any tax-exempt financings you've done to stay with under the $10 million, and I think the business manager and John have been working on that, and we're well below the $10 million, so we're okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not,
Okay, thank you.
thank you very much. Mr. President, that ends guest and scheduled speakers for this evening.
All right, thank you. Now moving on to, excuse me, the public comment on the board action items. John?
John Andrews, Lower Providence. I was going to ask Mr. Willard what the interest rates are expected to be, but I don't know whether anyone else in the room has answers for such a practical question. On the list of bills, there's an item to pay the MCIU something over $300,000 for costs incurred in the 16 to 17 year corrective education and detection costs. Is this a situation where this bill has to be paid out of the 17-18 budget because it appears so late in the cycle of things? I guess that would be a question for Mr. Bricker.
It's coming out of the 17-18 budget. It was received post-closing of the year.
You know, similar thing happened a year or two ago, and it gave some directors consternation. But with the turnover in business managers, I guess it happens. With regard to the master plan for renovation work next year, I gave each director a memo earlier this week with some comments on that. And I questioned some of the projects. For instance, at Arcola next year, the plan says do the auditorium ceiling activity and also do the stage upgrades where AEM had the stage upgrades a lower priority for a later year. And we've got a number of roofs that may be leaking, and I would think that roofing work is higher priority than is assigned by the Fidavia crew. So I think that's one of the items worthy of discussion that I don't think has happened yet as to this, $8 million type activity. And we've had a number of projects over the years that perhaps didn't have enough discussion or deliberation by the board, and now we're still paying the bonds off on those things. With regard to the negotiations and the arbitration activity that's going to be voted on later this evening, I and other people may have questions about that after it's explained. There's not much of an explanation in the agenda. But I do, it seems to me that Mr. Sultanic would be the district's representative on the three-person arbitration committee, whereas I would personally think that one of the directors should be there rather than a lawyer. With regard to the updated sponsor list, it has a line item for Best Buddies, but no pricing, as if the Best Buddies don't have a sponsor, and I think that needs to be explained. We had a lot of discussion about Best Buddies in the spring, and I can think of a number of reasons why we
Can you
don't
finish
have
up, please?
Yes, we don't
Thank
have
you.
a sponsor there, but I'd like to know the facts rather than my speculations. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I clarify one thing real quick? Mr. Bricker, in regards to Mr. Andrews' question regarding the MCIU payment, this question was asked during the Finance Committee meeting as well. We were told with the hashtag designation that there were payables within this, and then it would be accrued back to the audit. Could you confirm or deny?
If there was hashtags on it, there was. I can check, but I'm pretty sure that this one had some 17-18 impact associated with it.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Let's move on to our items. The first item will be appointment of the student board representatives. May I have a motion to appoint, and I apologize if I don't get it quite right, I've been practicing, Saket Gokhale, close, thanks, and Lauren McNichol as student representatives to the Board of School Directors for a term of 2 years, effective 2017-2018 school year. Second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, hold it. Oh, that's right.
Just to make an announcement for the awareness of everyone, pursuant to Board Policy 6.2, when members are participating via telephone, all votes are conducted via a roll call vote.
Okay. So, oops, sorry. Ms. Reese?
Yes.
Ms. Sackett?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips on the phone?
Nay.
Okay. And Ms. Aubrey Larson-East on the phone?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes.
Just for clarification, is that an 8-1 vote? Was Mr. Phillips a nay?
7-1. Mr. Dorrance
Sorry.
is absent.
Thank you.
All right, the next thing on the item is the administration of oath of office. So can you please come forward? Okay. So the board's going to administer the following oath of office to the newly appointed student board representatives. All right. All right, raise your hand. Right hand. Apparently that's important. I do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth, and that I will discharge the duties of student board representatives to the board with fidelity. Say I do. I do. All right, congratulations. And now they're going to sign the oath of office, and if your families want to come down for the signatures.
Do you want to come back here with them? We'll have
Okay.
Sure.
Mom wants to get in the picture. All right. Big deal. Thank you. Congratulations.
You can just sign one thing, sign one here. We'll have copies made and provided to you. Thank you so much.
Excuse me. All right, next up is the reports. First report would be the Finance Committee. Mr. Ryan.
Thank you. I'll try to keep this short. Our meeting was almost 2.5 hours long, so I'll try to get through this as quick as possible. The meeting minutes are attached to the agenda for this evening. The Finance Committee meeting met on September 13th. The meeting was called to order at 6:30. In attendance were myself, Ms. Hackett, Mr. Winters, Dr. Zerbe, Mr. Bricker, and Mr. Williard from PFM. Mr. Dorn was absent, and Dr. Zerbe did leave before the meeting ended. The committee did review the list of bills, the treasurer's report, the expenditure and revenue reports for the month. The committee was also presented with the health care report, which had been missing for the last couple of months. It was the hope that we would be receiving a new health care report, a little bit more thorough and streamlined. Unfortunately, that will not be the case. We will receive the same one that we've been getting in the past. Multiple discussion topics that evening, the first of which was the audit. Mr. Bricker spoke with the District Auditor, Major Amastro, regarding the 2016-2017 fiscal year audit and when it would be completed. The committee had expressed prior that it was hoping for an earlier completion date than last year. Unfortunately, it seems like we were about on the same time frame as we were then. The committee did ask for a copy of the draft audit so that we could use that for the October finance meeting. Mr. Bricker will reach out to Major Mastro to see if we can get that accomplished. In the past, normally the draft version and the final are pretty close. Next was the state budget update, which was really a lack of an update. The expenditures have passed into law, but there's still no revenue approval from the state, so on how they're going to pay for that. Next up on the agenda was the Act 1 index. The Act 1 index, for everyone's knowledge, for the 2018-2019 school year will be 2.4% for Mithacton. This is down from the most recent estimate which the district had been given. We were told it could be close to 3%. Unfortunately, that is not the case, or fortunately, that is the case, depending on how you look at it. The 2.4% is consistent, though, with prior estimates that we had received, as well as actual indexes from prior years. Next up on the agenda was the 2018-2019 proposed budget timeline. The idea with this was to provide a little bit more time for the Finance Committee and the Board as a whole in order to pass the final budget in June. Normally that occurs at the June board meeting, which is a couple of days before the budget is due. We will now be working to have a special meeting which will be attached to the either before or after the work session in June, where we will pass the final budget. Therefore, in order to do that, we will also need to have a special meeting with the May work session in order to pass the proposed preliminary budget. It is the recommendation of the Finance Committee to have both of these special meetings to allow for the new budget timeline. Next up was the banking RFP. Mr. Bricker has actually changed the process to be an RFI, to simply request information from local financial institutions. He will keep us apprised of his progress in this area. Next up, it was the LRTA program. We've talked about this in prior months. The township would like to continue to move ahead with the possibility of the LRTA program. If you may remember, there are 2 proposed properties that they're looking at. The township would like to come in front of the Finance Committee for the next meeting in October. The Finance Committee did agree to have a representative from the township come to the meeting. Next up, we have the Keystone Realty Advisors. For those that don't know, they are a company in the area who help to identify some of the what they would be considered under-assessed properties in the district. There was a lot of discussion around this. Basically, the committee has decided that we would like to renew the agreement with them with the understanding that no new fees would be incurred by the district whatsoever. There would be no review from the solicitor before it got to us. There would be no district time or effort put into this. If they identified any properties, they would come directly to the Finance Committee. The idea behind this was that we didn't want to spend any of our money or time on this unless they were able to come directly to the board. Next up is the master plan borrowing. I will skip this item as you just heard that information from Mr. Williard this evening. It was recommended from the Finance Committee to both agree to bring to the board the idea of refinancing the 2011 bond series, as well as the consideration of the new finance borrowing for the 2018 master plan work. Finally, courtesy of the floor, Mr. Bickelman commented on the district's credit card and how we need to have much more controlled purchasing procedures. Also commented on the list of bills and how all the invoices should be listed separately, not grouped together. Excuse me as I'm paraphrasing to get through some of this. Mr. Bickelman also made mention of the upcoming facilities projects and the different codes that are available to keep track of everything. Also made mention of health and benefits by employee. Next, Mr. Earnshaw asked if the payment to the MCIU was accrued properly, getting back to the question we just heard about. Also commented that we may use the amount in the capital fund to be used to pay down the Emmaus bond series. Expressed that he thought it would be good during budget discussions that comparison should be made to projections as opposed to prior year or budget numbers. And finally, he made his monthly request to eliminate the per capita tax. Finally, Karen Barbara commented on district borrowing and that waiting to borrow until next year could result in higher interest rates, which would cost the district additional money in the long run. The meeting did adjourn at 8:45. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now on to the Property Committee.
Mr. Dorn is absent this evening.
Yeah, and I'll just mention that I was not in attendance at that meeting, but there are minutes attached to the agenda for review if anyone would like to do that. Thank you.
Kim, would you like to add anything to that for property?
I could not hear what he said. I'm sorry.
Would you like to add anything to the property meeting minutes? Mr. Dorn's not here. Mr. Roth was not at that meeting. Would you like to add anything?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
All right, moving on to the Education Committee. Ms. Reese.
We met on September 6th. In attendance was myself, Ms. Hackett, Mr. Winters, Dr. Zerbe, Dr. Katona, Dr. Angstad, and Ms. Ricky. First up was talking about professional development on the opening days of school. Power School still needs more training, especially the report cards. September 22nd will be, and I should say was, an additional day for K to 6. K to 5 will spend most of the day working with Wonders, and grade 6 will focus on study sync and specific subject areas. Next was a demo of the Safe Schools program. This is an online training modules that include mandated trainings such as sexual harassment, as well as optional offerings like working with exceptional children. An ELL numbers update was given. As of September 6th, there's 151 total ELL students receiving active instruction. 74 still needed to be tested, with 42 at Woodland and 32 of those being kindergarten students. Immunizations, that was a vocabulary word for my kids this week. I still can't say it correctly. I apologize. The second clinic was held back on September 5th with 12 families attending. Personal calls were made again on September 7th. If children were still not immunized, they could not attend school on September 12th. This was in the past, but I'm just reiterating my notes here. As of September 6th, they were aware of all the following numbers of students that were still remaining. Arrowhead had 0, Eagleville had 5, Woodland had 20, Worcester 0, Skyview 3, Arcola 3, and the high school 65. Just wanted to thank Dr. Angstad and all the nursing staff for taking on that huge project that the state kind of made all the districts handle, and it was handled very well. So thank you all for your hard work in that. There was an update given to the Free to Be Assembly. That was a program through CHOP that I believe Mr. Boardman had suggested. It's an anti-bullying program that included a 3D movie shown to 164 sixth grade students. Students were surveyed and results were shared. Suggestions from the facilitators were based on those results. They suggested such things as open lines of communication, continue to monitor hallways and lunchrooms, relay anti-bullying message consistently, and provide visuals and reminders about the rules. If CHOP has funding, they will reach out to us for future programs. We also discussed the curriculum that's on the board agenda for this evening in biology and environmental science. We discussed the Jump Start program that occurred over the summer. Students from all elementary schools attended. 28 out of 40 invitations were accepted. 13 of those students attended all 12 days. 19 students used district transportation, and it was very well received by parents. An additional event over the summer was a STEM grant writing workshop update, which is, I believe, another part of the Education Foundation. Dr. Hayes funded it. 7 teachers participated. 3 days of that workshop were on site. 2 days were online. An adjunct Penn professor, Dr. Terrell, facilitated. So thank you to those teachers that participated in that. As always, we went over the enrollment. As of September 1, 4,824 students. Courtesy of the floor, there was a reminder that Simons Fund information is coming, so to be on the lookout, and I think all of us have seen that, so as a reminder, keep an eye out for that. Megan Fitzgerald commented on great communication on immunizations, once more STEM opportunities. Jen Cankro commented on her use of quizzes on the Safe Schools program, adding that they are good. 7th grade immunizations communication was good. Son enjoyed the Free to Be assembly. She also offered the suggestion of might be needing to explain Jump Start to some of the new parents, because most of those parents that's their oldest child going into kindergarten. And she also wanted to mention that Mrs. Cherry is phenomenal.
So if you're here, Mrs. Cherry, there you go. I'm sure my daughter would agree. I think you were her media specialist last year, so I'll second that. And the meeting adjourned at 7:50.
Thank you very much. And now on to the Policy Committee, Ms. Aubrey Larson-East.
Thank you, Mr. Boardman. I apologize if anyone in the room can't hear me well. The minutes are posted online for your review. The Policy Committee meeting was held on September 7th. The meeting was called to order at 6:31 p.m. We had all members of the committee, myself, Mr. Ryan, Ms. Reese, as well as Dr. Zerbe and Mr. Kyle Summers were in attendance. We had a pretty full agenda, as we have been. 9 of the policies from that evening were moved to a first reading, which you'll see on the agenda tonight. We had 5 policies that had some significant points of discussion, one of which is Policy 141, which is school-related organizations. This impacts a number of organizations within our district. Most significantly is the Methacton Coordinating Council. We had representatives from the Coordinating Council join us for the meeting so that we could get a sense of how the policy changes could impact them before we move it forward. We had also some discussion on a policy on service animals in school. That's something that we're seeing happening in Methacton now. And Mr. Summers is going to get back to us next month with some more information to consider before we move forward on that policy. Under old and new business, we confirmed that Narcan is now available in our schools as stated in our policy. Ms. Reed's questioned what our district policy is on snacks, and we confirmed that it is covered under district wellness policy number 246. And Mr. Ryan requested that we begin discussing our process for revising student handbooks at the next meeting so that we can make some progress on this before getting into the work of revising the handbooks and approving them next summer. During courtesy of the floor, we had Brenda Hackett suggesting a change to Policy 141 with regards to the budget deadline, and also recommended that we have a more formalized process for approving field trips retroactively when necessary. Mary Hull asked if buses are considered school property as discussed in Policy 805.1, and Dr. Zerbe confirmed that they are. The meeting was adjourned at 9:03 p.m.
All right, thank you. And now on to the IU, Ms. Hackett.
I have no report. There was a meeting tomorrow night, and I reported on the August meeting at our August meeting.
It's all in the timing. Thank you. Now on to the Technical Career Center.
We met on September 19th. It was a very short meeting. They did provide us with a nice information booklet, which I'm sure the high school has many copies of if you're interested, but with 2 of the major winners from the North Montgomery Technical Career Center right on the cover. So they also provided us with a list of winners over the last few years, and as I'm always saying, we have something very proud of at our technical center with a lot of strong students there. I wanted to remind my board members that you received something in the mail for the December dinner, which is the 50th anniversary of the Career Center. So if you're able to make it, I brought, they have a dinner every December, but this is the 50th anniversary. You are welcome to bring a guest. I brought a colleague last year because her son was interested. Her son is a student there now and doing very well. So I would encourage, I know our calendars are busy, but if you're able to make it. I would also encourage the public just to remind you that October 4th, the bakery and restaurant reopen. I only know that. I can't keep track of everything because I follow them on Facebook and they try really hard to update. So if any of you would like to like the North Montgomery Technical Career Center on Facebook, seems to be a little, everyone might need a little break from social media, but if you could like them, you'll have lots of these updates.
All right, and now on to our student board representatives.
So over the summer, Chromebooks were given to 9th and 10th graders, so now all grade levels in the high school have them. These Chromebooks are used in every class at some point, and using Google Classroom saves paper and also allows for submitting assignments online. And it's easier to collaborate on group projects through these computers. Also, this is the first year with the new parent portal system, PowerSchool, and it enables parents and students to view their grades online. And an added feature of the system is the app for mobile devices, and this allows easier access and notifications when updates have been made. Also on October 11th, 10th and 11th grade students will be taking the PSAT exams, and this exam is meant to introduce students to the SAT exam, and students who do well can qualify for a merit scholarship. And lastly, the homecoming dance will be on October 6th, and the homecoming game will be on October 13th. The senior class is planning a tailgate and activities. The theme for this year is a tropical theme, and Homecoming Spirit Week starts Monday, October 9th, leading up to the football game. And the themes for each day will be announced this week.
All right, so starting off with theater, this year the play will be A Midsummer Night's Dream. The auditions for the play were already held, and we can expect a lot of hard work from them to come leading up to the play. Second off, in sports, the Methacton Warriors currently have 9 athletics running this fall, including band, cheerleading, cross country, field hockey, football, golf, soccer, tennis, and volleyball. This is our 3rd year being able to play on the turf. And currently, 7 out of the 10 teams between the boy and girl competitive sports have a winning record. Going off of sports, we also have Powder Puffs coming up, which is open to all females of 11th and 12th grade. This year, practice will be held Sundays leading up to the football game October 13th. The Powder Puff game will be held before the homecoming game. And lastly, this Thursday, the 28th, will be the back-to-school night for the 11th and 12th grade parents, and it is running from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. And now on to communications. Ms. Lynch.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to tell the board that 14 Methacton High School seniors were recognized as semifinalists in the National Merit Scholarship Competition. These students were selected as part of their performance on the preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship qualifying test. These academically talented high school seniors have an opportunity to continue in the competition for some 7,500 National Merit Scholarships worth more than $32 million next spring. To be considered for a National Merit Scholarship Award, semifinalists must fulfill several requirements to advance to the finalist level of the competition. 90% of these semifinalists are expected to attain finalist standing. The following Methacton High School seniors have been identified: William Chen, Anath Danibatla, Eric Jaworski, Stephen Jin, Emma Laurie, Amy Liu, Kim Ban Pham, Aikut Reddy, Dhruv Sringari, Jeremy Wang, Caleb Watt, Karthik Yagnesh, Kevin Zhang, and Mary Wang. The following Methacton High School seniors were among the program's commended students who have had a significant achievement on the test but will no longer continue in the competition: Preeti Bova, Doshit Kushi, Sonali Tukul, William Gullion, Maximilian Jin, Evelyn Kiefer, Peter Luba, Kevin Nendis, Benjamin Ripley, Abhi Shah Shrikishna, and Kevin Zhao. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Zerby.
Mr. President, there's no report this evening.
Okay. Let's move on to the meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve the board meeting minutes of the work session held August 15th and the regular meeting held August 29th? Second. Roll call vote on this. Ms. Rees?
Yes.
Ms. Hackett?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips? Okay. And Ms. Aubrey Larson-Neese?
Yes.
The motion passes 7-1 with Mr. Phillips the nay. Moving on to fiscal items. Mr. Bricker.
Thank you. For tonight, we have for your approval, the list of bills, the treasurer's report, and a payment for Mill Road. There's 2 additional items that were not on the working session. That is the creation of the student activity account for the class of 2021, as well as the bond financing as outlined by Mr. Willard tonight. This would be to authorize the financing team to proceed with preparing borrowing documents to be reviewed by the board at its workshop meeting on October 17th.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the list of bills, treasurer's report, payment for Mill Road repair, student activity account, and bond financing master plan as presented?
Could you separate them? Would you mind?
What would you like?
You can do A and B together and then do C, D, and E separately.
Do A and B together and then the others separately?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Does that work for everybody? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the list of bills in the treasurer's report? Second. Any discussion? Roll call, Ms. Reese?
Yes.
Ms. Hackett?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Nay.
Ms. Aubrey Larson-East?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes for the list of bills and treasurer's report as 7-1, and Mr. Phillips the nay. May I have a motion to approve the payment of the Worcester Township, payment to the Worcester Township for the repair of 145 yards of paving base on Mill Road in the amount of $4,060? Motion to approve it. Second. Discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, Jim, you can go first.
Say again?
What? You can go first, Jim, if you...
Okay. Being that the township has a surplus of tax revenue from the earned income tax of between $350,000 to $1.2 million a year, and they don't give it back to the community, they just stick it in the bank. I think the township should be footing the bill for that, not the school district, being that they have such a surplus every year.
Okay. All right, thanks, Jim. Anybody?
I was wondering if, Dr. Zerby, if you could just provide a little bit more information around this. I believe this made it through Property Committee that this came through, and may have even been mentioned at one point through Finance, but how was the damage defined, I guess I would say? Who all was involved in the process of examining it? Was any money withheld from Worcester in the beginning of this as an escrow for any of this damage? Could you just kind of walk us through this process a little bit?
In summary fashion, we received a notice that Worcester Township, as part of their repaving project, were going to repave a portion of Kriebel Mill and Mill Road, among other streets within the township. As part of that, they did an inspection on Mill Road and determined that a section of Mill Road, which was heavily traveled by construction traffic for the field project, would require a base improvement, and they sent us a letter notifying us that because of the pricing that they've received from their contractor, that that we could pay Worcester Township through the square footage dollar amount that's provided in the amount, which seems to be, under industry standards, a pretty good rate. However, I brought that before the Property Committee, and the Property Committee had a number of questions, and those questions were discussed, and later direction given to Fidavia to meet with the township and to meet with the, I believe, the engineers that the township had hired. I believe it's CKS. And they met on site, they reviewed the work, and I believe Mr. Sakala, who performed that work, is here this evening, that he might be able to, if you don't mind, Mr. Sakala, if you could just come forward and just talk about that inspection. So he acted on behalf of the district to inspect the site as a neutral third party to determine whether or not was worthy of the work that they so claimed was a result of our construction and possibly years of erosion that occurred in that particular area, because it's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm not accurate on this, but the way the water has run over a number of years, it runs to that particular point and then down the roadway of Mill and has torn a pretty decent crevice into the roadway, which appears to be a matter of the water leaving our property over time. So I'll probably stop where I lack the rest of the information and ask you to pick up for me.
No, you really covered it quite fine. The only piece you missed is that all of the subject areas along the entire stretch of Mill Road were previously identified, marked off with spray paint, and when I went out there, that was reviewed, measured to verify that the dimensions that were being sought and the price attributed to that were accurate, which I did, and that's really about it. You pretty much covered it. It was more the sheeting of water over the course of time than the project itself, but yes.
As a follow-up to that then, I guess we've been told that this was more of a result of the construction work that was happening, but if it really is something that, has a water erosion type thing, are we doing anything to address the root cause of this so that we're not charged again in the future for any more road work?
The project corrected that.
The project did correct that? Okay.
The project and the subsequent project with the basin restoration.
Okay. And since Mr. Dorn's not here, Mr. Roth, were you at that meeting? Was that the recommendation to move this ahead and to approve this bill?
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
When you let me.
You're on, Mr. Phillips.
Go ahead, Jim.
Was there any core samples done for as the base of stone, and then how much binder and top coat was on the original road?
Not to my knowledge.
No, Jim.
So we don't know if the road wasn't constructed right to begin with, and if it was had the proper base coat of material, and then binder coat, and then top coat. So we have no idea if it was even done right to begin with.
No.
The answer is no.
Okay, so I have a feeling that the road was deficient to begin with, and we're paying for something that we probably shouldn't be.
I just, and certainly every board member has opinion and will vote in a second. I just want to make sure that from Fidavia's representation of the district, and when you met with the engineers, is it your recommendation that the work that they're suggesting we reimburse them for is reasonable under the circumstances that you reviewed? Dan?
Again, we reviewed the size of the repair that was identified, and the unit price associated with that was reasonable. So as far as the cost of the work identified, yes, that was reasonable. As far as the historical aspect of the damage, that was kind of a collective conversation over the course of time, and I will just add, from a practical matter, there was an offering of reviewing video and records over the course of past years. If there was a desire to go through a long, frankly, extensive analysis of what actually happened, which perhaps may have been greater than the area that was identified for reimbursement. And if that was a desire, that would cost time and money to go through that process. And perhaps from a practical standpoint, just a reasonable, fair, a good neighborly thing to do would be to just honor and respect the area that was identified based on all the facts available.
So I think you said something interesting there earlier, though. You said it's not related to the project. There was no identification of root causes being related to the Fields project.
Because the kind of damage there was damage that would occur over the course of years. It wasn't something that would have just happened in the course of the context of the project.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I will say this has been going on for some time, and since I live over around the corner from that, I've heard from multiple neighbors on it. And I actually went over in the last year in 2 of the worst storms and looked at it, and it did look like an enormous river of water coming off the township, or not the school district's property, and smashing right into the road. I'm not an expert on that by any means, but I can attest to the volume of water that was coming off our property and onto the road.
And over time, that's what will wear out a road.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Oh, Brenda.
Is it common that a property owner would reimburse for a road that has eroded and has had damage over years, even if there was leakage from the property?
I mean, normally, if I'm understanding your question, normally, especially in accordance with all the conservation district requirements throughout the state, water is supposed to be captured on the site where it originates. And if you don't do that, I mean, yes, I mean, theoretically, I mean, any project that's built today, there's extensive stormwater requirements for catch basins and detention. Yeah, I mean, you're supposed to capture your water runoff on your property.
Well, it's my understanding when we started the Fields project that the township called it to our attention that there was an issue, and we have done work to remediate that problem, it seems to me.
Yes, like I mentioned in response to a previous question, the basin and the field project, which created a new basin, and then the subsequent project that's been recently worked on and is almost completed, eliminated that issue. So yeah, you've spent a good amount of money to take care of that problem, yes.
So this is something that happened prior to that project, largely.
Yeah, and I'm just hitting it home because I wasn't here prior, so, but that, yes, like to answer the other question, this is not something that happened really as a result of the project. It's something that happened over the course of years.
Okay. I'm just never familiar with a property owner being called upon to make such payments for a public surface of that sort. If we had been fined or notified or told that we were not in compliance, maybe that might be a different situation. But it seems to me that this is a little bit of overreach on the part of the township.
Any more questions? Okay, let's do a roll call vote then. Mr. Roth, why don't we start with you?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Winters?
No.
Mr. Phillips?
Nay.
Ms. Aubrey Larsenis?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
No.
Ms. Hackett?
No.
Ms. Reese?
No.
And Mr. Boardman? No. Moving on now to the student activity account. May I have a motion to approve the establishment of an account for the Methacton High School class of 2021 within the Student Activity Fund in accordance with the District Board Policy Number 618. Second. Any discussion? Okay, we'll do the roll call. Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yay.
And yes for me, Ms. Aubrey Larsenis?
Yes.
Okay, and Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Hackett?
Yes.
Ms. Reese?
Yes.
And it passes 7-1 with Mr. Phillips being the nay. The next one is the bond financing master plan. May I have a motion to authorize the school district's financing team to proceed with preparing borrowing documents for the review by the board at its workshop meeting on October 17th and for advertisement and final consideration by the board on October 24th in conjunction with refunding the school district's general obligation bonds series of 2011 for debt services, savings purposes, and for funding the 2017-18 fiscal year portion of the school district's master plan. Second, any discussion? Paul?
Yeah, I'm a little conflicted on the timing of this when we haven't even talked about exactly the master plan itself, to be honest. And I was wondering if the possibility of this was going to be authorized for creation around both the refinancing and the new money separately for the development of the paperwork. I know that I should ask that half an hour ago, but so anyway, the point is that I honestly am not really ready to absorb this from this perspective.
At the point where you authorize there would be two motions, one for the new money and one for the refinancing of the new money. But that's not what you're voting on here. What you're voting on here is to tell the finance team to start moving forward with placing the advertisements and getting the process and paperwork ready to present to you somewhere on the 17th and the 24th. What that means is you can, as a board, decide to move this forward this evening, and it does not commit you to anything other than approximately
about $500.
About $500 in advertising cost associated with it. So the challenge this evening, just so everyone's aware, is that we did meet in the Finance Committee meeting, and it was originally recommended that this would not come before the board until October. However, on the day of our work session, I did receive indication of a timeline that indicated that in order to fit everything in what PFM suggested we address this evening would start this process. So it's certainly not something that I would normally do of this magnitude, but the problem is we either need to hold a special meeting or you authorize them to start the paperwork process, but you don't authorize them to do any of the either refinancing and new borrowing at this time. So you will have between now and the 17th and the 24th ultimately to review the documents, ask questions as you see necessary, and get the answers that you deserve.
Thanks for the explanation, Mike.
Just two things that was made mention by Mr. Williard before. The net savings for the refunding of the series of 2011, it was recently updated, so it's $114,865 in net savings to the district. I just want to make sure that that was out there. And two, I guess along with what Paul had said, is there also the opportunity to tweak some of the total numbers? I know we talk about $8.5 million as the borrowing. After reviewing the master plan this evening, we say we only need $8 million. Is that affected at all in terms of what we're authorizing tonight? Or do we still have the ability to make minor changes to how much we're asking for in terms of borrowing?
It's my understanding they're just starting the paperwork, so if we wanted to change that, we could. However, I'd confirm with them on the timing and any impacts that would have.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, correct.
Go ahead, Jim.
For the funding of year 17-18 for the master plan, what's that amount?
On page 8 of the agenda this evening, under item 14D for master plan, the number that's being considered at this point is $8,543,100 for work to be completed in year one. That's likely about the amount that will be as part of the advertisement. I don't know if that dollar amount includes or doesn't include the fees associated with the borrowing. So it's about that amount, just to be certain. I want to be clear with you.
Yeah, that's the mass.
Dollars that was supposed to go towards contracts or facilities. How much of that $1.9 million went towards the master plan?
At this time, nothing was spent from the $1.9 million.
Nothing spent at all towards the master plan, or let me rephrase it. Is there any of that money from the 1.9 going towards the master plan?
We have not indicated an amount being designated for any area, either for contracts or for the master plan. It is money that's basically held in that account, and it will be up to the board to make that determination. And that's the language that we agreed to.
So in theory, we only need, 6.9 million if we use the 1.9, or I should say, 6.1. So, are we over borrowing if we put that 1.9 towards the master plan? I'd hate to see us pull $8 million if we have 1.9 that we can put towards it. Otherwise, it seems like we're financing other things that are not associated with the master plan.
Mr. Phillips and the rest of the board, it should be known that the overall scope, the 10-year scope, is probably in the neighborhood of between $70 to $80 million. This $8,500,000 is a small portion of that initial investment into these facilities. That money can be used in a period of 3 years, and so therefore I don't think this is over borrowing in order to get to those. There's certainly enough projects to be completed in the next 10 years that we would find $8.5 million used $8.5 million for.
It sounds like we're not intending to use the 1.9 million towards the master plan. I mean, if we're looking at that much money and we're starting to borrow money, where we have the wherewithal to think about borrowing this money, but we haven't had the wherewithal to think about where the 1.9 is going?
Well, I think it's important to understand that while the board can choose to use all or a portion of the $1.9 million that we have in the budget for either contract negotiations and or facilities, knowing that we have a 10-year plan that likely needs $70 to $80 million, the board could choose to do more projects and use some or a portion of that 1.9 as they see fit in this coming year. And we could end up doing an extra, say, $500,000 worth of projects, or whatever the board decides to do. So it doesn't preclude them, this borrowing doesn't preclude you from using a portion or, in your recommendation, all of the money towards some of the capital improvements.
Sounds like we're more money so we can have access to other money to use on something that's not a capital improvement. So, okay.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Any other comments from the members of the board on this item? And do we have a motion? Did we got that? We got that so far, right? So we need to take a roll call.
All right, let's start with Ms. Reese's time.
Yes.
Ms. Hackett?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Aubrey Larson-Neese?
I'd like to abstain.
Okay. And I vote yes. Mr. Phillips?
No.
Okay. Mr. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Roth?
Yes.
We have 6 yeses, 1 no, and 1 abstain. The 1 no is Mr. Phillips, and the 1 abstain is Ms. Aubrey Larson-East. Now on to the personnel items. Dr. Sosnovic.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, for your consideration, we have 1 resignation classified, 9 employment classified, 1 change of status of a professional, 1 uncompensated leave professional, 1 uncompensated leave for classified employee, 7 supplemental contracts. Inclusive of those supplemental contracts are the 17-18 department subject area coordinators, mentor lists, sponsors, and ISSS. We ask you to also approve the classified substitute list of 1 individual, the list of volunteers, and 6 items underneath community education.
Thank you. Does anybody want to pull out any of the items individually? Okay. May I have a motion to approve all the personnel items as presented? Second. Any discussion? Mike?
Just one question for you, Troy. We've seen this a couple of times at the last, I guess, probably 2 or 3 board meetings, along the lines of F, change of status professional, where we change the status from furloughed to gifted. Do we know how many teachers so far have been furloughed to being rehired?
I'll answer it in a different way. There's 3 left on the furlough list.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
With the sponsors, there was, as Mr. Andrews pointed out, 1 blank for Best Buddies. I know that was a concern, that we make sure that that's a legitimate paid position, so I'm curious if we're just looking for someone.
Actually, there were 3 blanks. It was academic decathlon, Best Buddies, and teams for the high school. Dr. Spiewak has subscribed points to these sponsors. He posted in the high school to fill those positions today, actually, and they would be on the next board agenda for your consideration. That's why they appear blank tonight.
And those were the exact 3 that we added.
That's accurate.
Any other questions? Okay, roll call. Ms. Reese.
Yes.
Ms. Hackett.
Yes.
Ms. Ryan.
Yes.
I said miss, didn't I? Sorry, Mr. Ryan. Ms. Aubrey Larson-East.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Winters.
Yes.
Mr. Roth.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now on to curriculum and programs. Dr. Katona.
Thank you. There's 1 item for approval this evening, and that is science curriculum. As noted here, the various biology courses and environmental science courses. The other item is just an announcement of the textbook being available for review, the science tech book, which would be for grade 6 at a cost of $48 a student for a 6-year license for 368 students. And tomorrow we will be putting a laptop in Farina and giving directions for people who would want to come by and take a look at that tech book as to how to access it.
All right, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the science curriculum as presented? Second? Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Roth.
Yes.
Mr. Winters.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Miss Aubrey Larson-East.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
Ms. Hackett.
Yes.
Ms. Reese.
Yes.
And myself, yes. So motion passes 8-0. Now on to policy. Dr. Zerbe.
There are 9 policies listed under
Sorry,
the
Chris.
agenda.
Chris, could I just confirm there? I'm not sure if I misheard you here, but I believe that last motion was just for the science curriculum.
Yes.
Did that also? I think we skipped over the textbook for review.
That's accurate.
What did we skip over?
You need to take a second motion for item 12B.
Oh, I didn't see it. Thanks. That was for the science curriculum. Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the science textbook? Second?
So moved.
All right, any comment? Yes.
I just had a question. You were talking about having a laptop available for people to access it online. Is this an online textbook? No paper?
It is online.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Chris. Just one question. I guess it's a two-part question. Was this a budgeted amount for the current year? Yes. And since it says a 6-year license, does that amount cover us for 6 years, or is that a annual expense?
That covers us for 6 years.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay, let's do roll call. Ms. Reese?
Yes.
Ms. Hackett?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Sorry, yes.
Miss Aubrey Larsenis?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Winter?
Yes.
And Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to policy. Dr. Zerbe.
There are 9 policies listed under first reading. There's nothing for you to approve this evening.
Thank you. Now on to the gift donations and sponsorships. Dr. Zerbe.
There are 6 gifts, donations, and sponsors as listed on the agenda. There are trips. There are 2 trips listed on the agenda. There is the traffic study, as we discussed at the work session last week. And then the last item on the, no, it's not. Then there's the master plan. There's 2 motions there to authorize the administration to proceed forward and then to move forward with the design documents. On the next item, we have the negotiations. As part, and I'll explain this one. This is certainly a new item. As part of the stipulation with the Methacton Education Association, it is upon the board this evening to approve these 2 motions as listed. The first motion is authorizing to post the Methacton School District on the school district website the final best offer of the district. It should be known that the board would authorize special counsel Fox Rothschild to participate in the negotiated final best offer arbitration in accordance with the section as listed on an issue-by-issue basis, and based on the stipulations with the Methacton Education Association. The second item is to approve the posting of the Methacton School District Board of School Directors and the Methacton Education Association's final best offers in accordance with Section 1125A and guidelines governing the provision of the public comment. So generally speaking, what will happen here, if you approve these particular matters this evening, once the mediator receives both proposals, one final best offer from the association and the one that you're approving here this evening, he will then contact the administration, and we will, with signatures from the MEA and from the board here this evening, post both final offers for public comment, and we will then take that public comment and share that back with both groups and with the public, and the process will then begin with the final best offer non-binding arbitration. Are there other questions related to matters under negotiation? If not, I'm going to go on to the last item, which is the 2017-18 school calendar. Based on the work stoppage and as well as being notified about the correct date of the primary election in May, the motion shall read, approve the adjustments to the 17-18 school calendar where October 9th and November 7th, 2017 shall be changed from Act 80 days for grades K through 12 in-service days to student days of attendance, and where May 8th, the Act 80 day for grades K through 8 in-service day will become a student day of attendance, and May 15th will become the Act 80 day for those students. So basically, when we originally put the calendar together, it was our belief that May 8th was the primary election, but that is now not the case. Are there any questions related to the 2017-18 school calendar? Okay.
I have one just about, so isn't May 7th Election Day?
It is.
So, okay. And the kids have school?
That's accurate.
Okay. And now, if we vote tonight, they have school on May 8th?
This vote here will be that we will have school on May 8th, which is not the primary election.
Okay.
Okay, does anybody want to split any of these out? How about we take A and B together and then do C, D, and E and F separately? Is that good? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the gifts, donations, scholarships, and trips listed under item 14A and B? Second. Any discussion on that? Okay, let's do roll call on that. Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yay. That's yes.
I had to think about it for a minute. Thanks for clarifying it. And yes for me. Miss Aubrey Larson-East?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Miss Hackett?
Yes.
Miss Rees?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 8-0. Thank you. Moving on to 14C, may I have a motion to approve the McMahon Associates of Fort Washington to conduct a traffic study on the Skyview Arcola campus and to complete the second phase of the traffic study at the high school campus at a cost not to exceed $10,250. And may I have a motion? Okay. Second?
So moved.
Okay, we have a second. Any discussion? Yeah.
Yeah, I do not feel like we should do this at this particular point in time related to, we haven't really completed what we're going to do with the transportation building in the master plan. So I would think the decision on what to do with the transportation building would be an impact on the traffic study, so I think this is premature. So I will be voting against this.
Any other comments?
Just to say I agree with Mr. Winters.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Yes.
I concur with Paul on this one. However, I would like to do, or even break this out of the traffic study around the high school campus, because in light of the various traffic jams that I've been involved in, getting around here, I think we do need to study some things on this campus.
I think there might be some confusion about what this entails, so I'll give you some explanation, and that may actually be helpful, since I didn't get questions on it to any degree at the work session. You should know that the total amount, which of about $8,000, is destined to do the study on the Arcola Skyview campus. That'll be a full study whereby, if you recall, we had done a previous study to look at whether or not the use of Middle School Road would be appropriate to help relieve traffic congestion. And I then came back to the property committee and then now to the board to suggest that while we had a review of the use of Middle School Road on that campus, it was premature for us to move forward with any further suggestion until such time we were sure that there were not other opportunities within the campus and the property that we own ourselves prior to making any such a substantial change to the use of Middle School Road. The challenge is with the use of Middle School Road, it should be known that it will change some traffic patterns in the neighborhoods that it empties out into. So before we address that, it's my recommendation that we address the property on Skyview and Arcola. So whereas if there's a better opportunity to have traffic flow in order to provide safety for our students, this is what will help us guide those decision-making processes. There's about $2,000, $2,500 or so that remains for the actual traffic study portion of the high school campus. I believe that that is important for us to count vehicles and to look at that in the same light as we would in any full and comprehensive study. So part of the other work on the campus has already been done with Dr. Sorgini and his team and others. So I just want to make sure that you understood what the $10,250 really entailed. And I'll take any other questions that you might have.
Dr. Sir, I just want to clarify for the audience that I do live on Middle School Drive and am not voting against this because of that particular reason.
Any other comments?
I believe that we had something on an agenda recently where we did spend a little bit of money on the Arcola Skyview campus because I was confused by what actually it was going to achieve. And here's another item that we have on here, which almost seems like a drip, drip, drip of money without really the full plan, even some kind of a projection as to what it is we're looking at, what potential benefit we might have from the various possibilities, and approximately how much money we would need to spend, because I know that there would be significant road work as well if we did that. Ms. Aubrey Larson-East, who also lives on Middle School Drive, pointed that out to me when I was confused with the previous amount of money that we were spending. So I just have a concern about it because it just seems like just one more consultant that is going to spend some of our money.
And so we can certainly look at it that way, and we can stop the conversation about whether or not we need to improve the traffic flow on the middle school campus. Part of the discussion was, and part of the direction that I got from the board was to look at Middle School Road. I took that and we moved forward with that. We were told that preliminarily it would cost a significant amount of money to do the work if we so chose to go forward. The challenge for us really is, are we going to spend that money not knowing that we could make changes on our own property which would direct traffic out to a location where there's only existing light and avoid having the potential impact to neighborhoods that don't have that traffic flow today. So my suggestion, and this is why it's here, the board can choose not to do it, and I'm fine with that. We have a lot of other projects and things that we need to work on. So the board can certainly, we can put a stop to this. This is not the end of the world. But if we want to consider how that traffic should be used, or how we should better move traffic on that campus for the safety and the potential other uses in the future, I need someone who's an expertise in traffic flow to tell me that. I can't go out and do that myself. So, I'll try to answer any other questions that you may have.
Yeah, it says that, yeah.
Hold on, Jim. Hold on. Kim, I heard Kim first, so Kim, why don't you go?
So I will not dispute that we do need to do some sort of a traffic study on both of these campuses. However, my biggest issue with this at this point is the timing of this. I feel like the traffic conditions on both of those campuses at this current time are not representative of what traffic would typically look like given our transportation problems that we're having. Given all of the problems we're having with our buses, we have an increased number of parents driving students to and from school. and which is creating a whole other level of traffic problem that we wouldn't ordinarily have. So I think that while I do agree that we do need to do some sort of a study to alleviate some of these problems, I don't think now is the time for that.
I think that's a fair comment. Yeah.
Jim, did you hear what Kim said? 'Cause she was on the other phone.
No, very hard to hear, Kim.
Well, let me summarize for you. She says a lot of the traffic issues now are potentially due to the ongoing transportation issues, meaning there are more parents dropping their kids off at school and things like that. So she's suggesting that, why don't we look at this after we get our transportation to a steady state that is reasonable.
Yeah, well, I sort of agree with Brenda with not spending money on the consultants. I figure we should just open up Middle School Drive, make it one way, and see how it works. I mean, why spend the money on a study? Just, try it random.
Okay.
But, I prefer to do the study, but, we could just open the road.
Okay.
Yeah. Chris, if I could just add, rather than a yes or no vote on this based off of the comments of the board, I think almost a motion to table this might be best at this point. Can I make a motion to table this?
Second.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's an immediate vote on a motion to table. So you have a, hold on. You do have a motion to table and a second, so you take the roll call vote on the motion to table.
Okay, let's do that. Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips, motion to table.
Nay.
Okay. I vote yes. Miss Aubrey Larson-Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Miss Hackett?
Yes.
Miss Reese?
Yes.
All right. Motion.
Did any board members abstain if they lived on that road? Did they abstain from voting or not?
No, they voted to table it.
Okay, so they didn't abstain. Okay.
Right.
Is it policy at all that when a board director is not part of any committee, attends rarely any meetings other than what is required, that he should abstain from any votes? I'm just curious.
Being that it's a voting meeting, that's the only thing required. I think I fulfilled it all, but I'd have to question whether someone abstains or not when it directly affects them. And some could say it's financial because maybe the house wouldn't be worth as much if you had buses going down the road. So, that's fine by me. Don't abstain.
Hey, Jim, can I just respond real quick? I'll make it quick. This particular motion is to not have the traffic go through middle school. It's to look at what we could do to keep it on Arcola and Skyview's campus. I voted against that particular aspect of the study. So to clarify, Jim, of what exactly I voted for, I certainly can abstain next time when it comes to opening up middle school.
And just to be clear, it was a motion to table, so there was no actual vote on the underlying issue. It was just a vote to defer that to a later meeting.
All right, let's move on. Now on to the master plan. May I have a motion to approve the authorization to proceed with the design document prep and authorize administration as part of the design document prep to enter into contract subject to the final form approved by the district solicitor in the amount of not to exceed $500,000. Second? Do I have a second? Okay. Any discussion on this?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
And I am hoping that Mr. Fretz and Dan can help me with this one, because it was brought to me by a member of the public, and that's the Skyview Arcola auditorium and stage upgrades for $1.15 million. What are we doing? I know about the auditorium ceiling. What are we doing with the stage upgrades? Do you know offhand?
Good evening. Yes, I think my memory serves me correctly. I think they were talking about the stage floor. There's also electronics there. There's light, sound. We have some rigging that needs to be replaced, possibly the curtain or the curtains. So that's some of that work. Just to go on to we talked about this job, I think, at last meeting a little bit. We talked about starting from the roof because there's mechanical equipment up in the lofts, up by the catwalks. The catwalks also need to be addressed there. Some of that lighting, that stage lighting up there, also is in need of replacement. So,
Okay, so we're basically doing the whole thing at once.
yes.
Okay. Given the fact that there are so many pressing needs in the district, I understand about the roof and the rigging and things like that, because a lot of those even point to safety issues, but the sound and electronics, I do not. I did have some time to look over this particular one, and I went through the property committee when I first started, and I unfortunately couldn't make the last one, but I do have some reservations about this. So this brings to my point is, as we go through these, for 2018, I don't know, but I would think it's in the board's purview to line item some of these things, and pull out. I mean, that's a lot of money, and I would like to know, if we break that one down, what is the ceiling and what's all the other stuff? Because I think there's some other things that really need to be addressed when you're looking at Arrowhead, in which nothing's going to be done in 2019. So, is there a pressing issue in that building that we really should take care of? So, while I'm in support of the master plan, I definitely think it is a fluid document and that we need to keep it as such, that this is not carved in stone, that, based on recommendations from a board member, or if it goes back into the property committee, that we look at something like this and reevaluate how we spend that money. Okay?
Understood.
Thank you.
Because the comment I'd like to make is, especially in year one, because it's going to help us out in out years, the process of understanding, as Herb was saying, light item by light item for the bigger items, but then a retrospective look at how did we do compared to what the master plan proposed, to really understand, are we coming in under those initial bids, or are we going over, and why are the reasons for that, to help educate us in the out years where we're going to still be using that master plan and numbers, and really understand, if year one, based on the master plan, it says 8.5, but when we go through the projects, if we come in at 7, then, that's good, and we can learn from that for out years. Yeah.
I'm sorry to just volunteer for this one, but it's our expectation that we're going to develop a report that we vet with the property committee that will be updated on a monthly basis as we go through the whole process. So you're going to capture everything that's being done in real time as we go through the process. As you mentioned about a living document, as Herb said, there will be, in fact, next month we've already competitively gone out to architects and engineers, and we have both engineer and architect coming to property committee to discuss those details. So, yeah, it's a continuing process. But as far as the accountability, I mean, there's no way to measure the success of the project if we don't provide financial reporting as we go through the process.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, sorry, I got a whole bunch. Dan, if you wouldn't mind, and Mark, some of these will be directed to you. Actually, I'll go to Mark first, if you don't mind, some of the smaller questions here. In the old facilities worksheets that we got from AEM, I noticed that there was a bunch that show up in 2018 on the master plan that on our old worksheet said were in progress, but they show up as new work in 2018. They're not some of the higher dollar amounts, but I'm just wondering, are we double counting here? Have we missed some of this, or when we said that they were in progress or in process before, they really weren't?
I'd have to look at exactly which ones you were talking about.
Okay, just a couple that are out there. So for Arrowhead, the the cooling tower was in process. For Eagleville, the roof repairs were. For Worcester, the roof repairs were. It's just a couple of them.
Yeah, so the roof repairs are ongoing, and I think it fell into actually our 2017 summer projects list where we kept, updating that number, as we will pretty much every month with storms and that type of thing, for all the buildings. Specifically, I think that's how all that's been handled.
Okay. The cooling tower for Arrowhead?
The cooling tower, we did, I think, have them come and look at it, and we have a proposal for that to replace a flex coupler on that particular item.
But
for maybe $15,000, but I don't think the work has not been done.
But no work has been done on
No,
that?
so that must be a mistake.
Okay. Dan? I spoke with you earlier regarding a specific topic, and I just think it would be helpful for the board to understand where I was coming from. I had a question regarding the Methacton High School MEP upgrades, specifically in the first year, it lists specific codes, and then in future years, you'll just see MEP upgrade with the same amounts. I was just hoping you could update the board with, what exactly that means moving forward, just so we all understand.
The codes identified in the first year of the master plan carry forward for years 2 and 3. They just weren't cut and pasted into the subsequent years. So basically, all of the mechanical work that needs to be done in the high school has been lumped together and is being completed, will be completed as efficiently as possible within the budget constraints that we have.
So my reason for bringing that to the board's attention is the idea that if we see high school 15, for example, I forget which one that is off the top of my head, but just because it's listed in year 1, it's going to be very hard to keep track of if that exact project was the one that was done or if that's still
Yeah, I'm sorry. For example, the unit ventilators in the classrooms, the likelihood of being able to accomplish all of them in one summer is in question right now. So we're either going to have to complete most of them and put the balance off to a subsequent summer, or work something out within the schedule where we can swing some space so we can add on some time, or perform it on an overtime basis. I mean, that's something we'll have to evaluate, but things like that.
Okay. I think this is a very important area for both the property committee and the finance committee and the administration to make sure that we are capturing all the costs, maintaining a very detailed schedule. Even during the finance committee, we talked about project costs and keeping money separated, and I think this is a prime example where we need to keep very accurate control over what's being spent, where it's being spent, and the progress of what we're at. So just as a whole there.
And if we, the summary is just that. It's a one-page summary to encapsulate everything. But in terms of the monthly reporting, we can break it down by item, so each item could be tracked separately.
No, that's great. That's the end of my questions. I do have to say that, and I've said it so many times that I get frustrated here, that the first year, 2018, the amount of money that's being spent on Arrowhead, I'm pretty sure I was at the meeting where we as a board voted to close Autobahn and close Autobahn only. What this plan sets us up for, and it's even mentioned in number 7, is the decision should be made about Arrowhead in the future, in the near future. What this is basically doing is making that decision for us. If we don't put any money into Arrowhead for the next 2 years, guess what? The exact same thing that happened in 2015 is going to happen again. And I don't know where the direction of this came from. Unfortunately, Mr. Dorn's not here to kind of talk about some of the stuff on the property. Maybe Mr. Roth or Ms. Aubrey Larson-East can just say, but this document was created very specifically, and I've heard it many times, that they used AEM's facility study, they used AEM's amounts, they only took out the items for Autobahn, they left in everything else. They included soft costs, which was correct, but where was the direction given to not put money into Arrowhead when this report specifically shows how much money needed to go into Arrowhead in the first couple of years? Does anybody have an answer with where that direction came from?
I can make some comments on that since I was on the property committee. And Mike, you have a very good point. A decision needs to be made on Arrowhead. Okay, what are we going to do with this building that we all know has got a lot of things that have to be done to it, okay? But there is work being done in the first year in 2018, okay? Small, lesser amounts comparatively speaking to other buildings. The main thing that was being pushed back is the roof, and I questioned that as well. But again, we as a board have to make a decision on what we're going to do with this building. Are we going to start putting money into it? Or are we going to retrofit it? Or what? I mean, there was even talk of even possibly closing it during the consolidation process. That was one of the options given. As we constantly monitor our enrollment, we need to look at that. It's something that we need to talk about, and we have not talked about it as a board. So as far as the direction, I believe it was, done all around. I mean, from many sources. Go ahead, Dr. Thurston.
One of the items that Mr. Roth didn't mention is that while there were thoughts about a potential closure, are we putting money into a building that we should be doing something else with? And one of the options was, should we construct a new Arrowhead on the existing property instead of putting money into retrofitting a building as it currently exists? Because a lot of the conversation is around what is the best investment. And before this board makes another decision to, invest a lot of money into roofs or other major systems in a building, we really need to have that conversation. I don't think we're there as a board or as a community to have those conversations at this moment. But I think that it was suggested through Fidavia that within the next 2 or 3 years, we ought to be having that conversation so that the best use of our dollars and its investment into the district through either a new construction at Arrowhead, a maintenance of the existing buildings, or whatever have you, the other options are appropriately targeted. So, it has to be a conversation, and it has to be a serious conversation about where we need to go, and we need to do this based on some data. So one of the things that I think is important is, does the Mylona McBroom study get us to a place where they predicted? If it does, or if it says it's higher, or we come out lower, or whatever it may be, it could be a telling factor and a contributing factor to what we do as a district. I think there's some great opportunity here as well. And I'll say that some of the conversation could lead to, creating, if we were to rebuild Arrowhead, imagine being able to do something where we build a community center on to part of that, to have a place for our students in the community to go. And there are all sorts of other ideas that might come out of the community, that might come out of members of the board. And I think it's worth you bring a good point forward, but I don't know if we're there yet. And the plan was, let's see what we can do to get this coming 18 summer a list of projects, and then let's start having that conversation. So I know as a property committee we struggled with when that conversation should be, and I think that's probably something that over the next couple of months as a board we need to, and as a property committee, we probably need to find out when on the timeline this best fits.
Yeah, just in response to that.
Go ahead, Jim.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, one day I almost spit out my soda when Dave said investment at a school board meeting. It was more like expense, but back with the Autobahn, when I first got on the board, Tim Quinn, railed and pushed the board to put $1.5 million roof on the building, and I said back then, we've gone back 7-8 years ago, should just patch it up because we're going to end up closing the school, and you don't know what you're going to do with it. So we blew $1.5 million on a roof. Here we are with Arrowhead. This is the next agenda item. We vote on that, and if what I'm hearing is true, that we're going to be short $1 million for year 2 and 3, well, we'll be closing the school so we don't cut some programs. I mean, the reality is that school's going to get closed. I mean, based on what our budget's doing, based on a lot of things. And a few years back, the reason for this master plan was previous directors, not board directors, directors within the district, it didn't do much of anything as far as planning. And this is something that's well needed. Yes, it's a good discussion to have about Arrowhead or Audubon or any of the other schools. But the reality is, Arrowhead's going to have to be closed probably sooner and later, and spending any money in that school and thinking about repurposing it for anything, we can't afford to. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
All right, thanks, Jim. Anybody else have a comment?
So from another perspective, the plan looks like, and if we use the PFM approach to doing this, we're looking at $8.5 million in this first year, and then a steady stream of the same in order to get all of these tasks accomplished. The total goes from $82 million worth of spending that we have to $190 million, where the spend drops off in 2026. It won't drop off until 2035. It's a lot to add on, and while I know we have the beginnings of this plan, I'm for a sharp pencil and seeing ways that we can cut this, because if we have to add that kind of cost, we're going from $9.2 million in 2018 to $11.4 million in 2026. That doesn't leave us much room to do anything with regard to salaries, with regard to programs. And so I really would like to see more specificity as to what we really have to do. I'm not in favor of letting the buildings go to pot. That is not my suggestion. But I don't think this is as tight as it could be. And I think for all the stakeholders of the district that it's important that we get this to be as tight as it can be.
I agree with a lot of what Brenda said in terms of, yes, we need to do this, yes, we need to be careful. So that's where my question comes in. I understand number one completely. Number two, when I hear the word enter into contracts, subject to final form approved, I know that. It just seems a lot of times that when we get to the contract part, we all are always like, whoa, 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 that we're questioning the contract, and then not to exceed $500,000. So what exactly does number two mean? And not to sound ignorant, but I want to make sure I understand number two.
Yeah, Dan, do you want to? Yeah.
It's just design services, engineering and architectural design.
When you say not to exceed $500,000, what is not to exceed $500,000? I'm an English teacher, so.
No, it's fine. The sum of the design and engineering contracts. So, for example, if the original charge was about a $7.5 million budget for construction, hard cost. Normally, the architectural fees, engineering fees are in the ballpark of 6%, just rough, using very rough numbers. So if you just kind of do the math.
So can we separate that and say, okay, go ahead with number 1, but slow down a little bit on number 2 and do it piece by piece? Does that make sense? I mean, I don't want to add more bureaucracy to this, but
Wouldn't it be done piece by piece? That's just a cap on how much you could spend on them?
Correct.
So the engineering and design fees would be tied to each of the individual projects. So if you have a project to fix a roof that's going to cost, $1 million, there's going to be design and engineering fees specifically for that, and that might be $60,000 or something like that.
who is,
Those contracts come before the board to approve.
right, I do understand that. Who, when it says authorize the administration, when we say authorize the administration, who are we talking about there?
Well, for example, next month, as I mentioned, the architect and engineer, the two main parties, will be brought before the property committee to discuss the projects.
Your administration, not,
I have no administration.
well, that's, so,
Through the administration, we're going to be working with Verdavia, who's going to assist us in acquiring the professional services necessary to create the documents and prepare the specifications. Those agreements then will come before the board for your approval, and they will then be either approved or not approved based on the review of those said contracts.
We have a fixed price contract, so part of our role is to procure competitive prices from architects and engineers applicable for the projects, bring them before you, vet them through the property committee, and then move forward with them.
and I'm asking these questions because I wasn't part of a lot of the former larger capital improvements, and I know there were some missteps, and I'm not pointing fingers. So this is why that number 2 concerns me. That's why I'm asking for this clarification.
I think the simplest way to describe it in my mind is you can't build a house without architect drawings. You got to pay for the architect. That would be coming out of these fees. So each project's going to have certain professional fees in order to get permits approved and appropriate bidding put out, and you got to do that before you actually get to the point where you're approving a budget to actually do the work.
Yeah, the $500,000 not to exceed, is that just on the $8 million?
It's actually on
Or
a...
is that all over the whole master plan?
No, it's actually not on the 8 million, it's on a smaller sum. The smaller sum had this $500,000 is included in that $8.5 million figure. It's not on the whole master plan, it's just year one.
Jim, not all the projects will require extensive design services. There might be certain projects in here that might be a $2,000 project, and it's something that we put together administratively or something to that degree. But if it's, for example, a roofing project, it's likely to require other professional services.
Is 6% of $8 million, I think, is probably about $480,000.
Yes.
So, I have to agree with Andrea, as far as that number being set at 500, you're just telling me, just like a roof, it doesn't take an architect to design a roof to put new shingles on it or to roll new membranes down. So, I guess that has to be sharpened up a little bit more because it seems pretty high if we ever got to that 500,000. I mean, I'd be more comfortable with a $250,000 number and then go back and readjust that number if need be, just to keep track of what Fidavia is billing us on.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Anybody else have comments?
Yes, I'll go back. I'll just keep it short. Two more things. In regards to the master plan, I do also still have some concerns with the work that's being done at the high school. We all know that the roof needs to be done. Be done over 3 years. In regards to the MEP upgrades and the amount of the cost in there, according to the AEM study, many of those items were seen as further down the road type things, and they were also not tied to the roof. So we're spending millions of dollars for things which they had projected we would need to spend for a couple of years, again, and not putting it into a building which we currently still have students in. That being said, for the design and engineers, for the architects, how are they being chosen? Like you said, you're having conversations with people so far. How are these people chosen?
Basically going out to all the firms. Before we were involved, there were firms that the district sought competitive prices from. We reached out to those firms, we reached out to other firms, and we're putting all the information together and presenting to the property committee.
Okay. And Mr. Bricker and I guess Dr. Zerby both, are you guys involved in this process to see the bids that are coming in and to verify that we are getting an acceptable number of bids, that we're doing our due diligence on the companies that have done this? We know the long history in the district of where we've been with this, and I just want to make sure that if we're embarking on all these other projects, that we don't want to do the same thing which we've done in the past.
I've actually passed along some contacts that I had that they can add in for building and for bidding on some of the construction jobs from my prior experiences. So I'm hoping that that would give us a larger amount of people that would provide us bids and get us better pricing.
And last question would be, is of the engineers and architects that we've been using so far or talking to, do any of them actually do construction work themselves too, or are they solely architects and engineers?
None of them do construction.
Okay. Just want to make sure that we're not awarding work to engineers and
Nor do we.
who also do something else. Okay. Thank you very much.
And real quick, and you weren't here the last time, but since there's so much roof conversation, I will just put a plug in for the Technical Career Center, and I know Dr. Zerby made a note of it when I said it. Something to look into is, since we spent many of time here speaking about the roof at the Technical Career Center, there's many people on that JOC board who are involved in that business, and I know they did a lot of work looking for that roof. So to save everybody some legwork there, I just wanted to reiterate that again, that I'm sure they'd be happy to share that information.
Thank you. Chris, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. I do wish Scott was here to help vet some of these questions out, and from the perspective of waiting for this particular output for very, very many months. However, I just have a couple of quick questions. Help me understand just the priority reconciliation between AEM and Fidavia. So when I see, and I'm not questioning either side, but when I see them move so dramatically from years, it starts to question why they were in certain buckets on one side or the other. So can you just help me understand why in some particular items I might see it in year 1 or 2, and then in another plan I'll see it in year 6 and 7?
Sure, and I think Mark would probably help in this regard, but basically, again, to reiterate what was said before, the AEM study was strictly an a la carte study. It wasn't a coordinated study. It didn't group items together based on efficiency and getting the most.
No, actually, I disagree with that. We did spend additional money to group this in the proper place and spend $7,500 for an Excel spreadsheet that did that. So I think we did try to group them into certain sections to identify that through the AEM. So was that a mistake?
Not the performing of them, not the taking to, like, for example, and again, Mark, you could probably help out a lot more with this, but basically, when you looked at the AM study, it listed everything, it prioritized them based on year, but it didn't look more detailed, like, for example, how a roof would relate to the mechanical system, how moisture in a building should be taken care of in conjunction with resolving the roof, how the perimeter of the for high school, for example, should be waterproofed and taken care of before you resolve your mechanical. They all kind of get grouped together. So our team, you want to come up, please come up. Our team met with the administration, and that was kind of vetted over and over. AEM, well, I'm talking too much. Go ahead, Mark.
Yes, so a lot of the projects that you saw in the AEM study, of course, have been put into buckets, as you had pointed out. And as we went through those, we still look at, okay, what needs to be done? What else, what other information is still out there? So one of the things that we did that you have authorized was the roofing consultant. What did they do? Well, they came out and they specifically, the high school, you think of it as one building. Well, in the high school, there's probably 8 roofs, maybe more. You know, anything from 30,000 square feet. Well, you can't tell that just from the study. It gets to a point where you're looking for water infiltration at the first pass, looking and pulling core samples, much like you could do with asphalt. After that, you could get into looking for infrared studies on that to qualify and quantify how much work truly has to be done there. All those are technical things that when AEM came out, they didn't do, and neither has the roofing consultant at this point. But we have better information today than we had yesterday. So right now we have these roofs graded on this building, also on Arcola, also on a few of the other buildings. That's not complete. But that kind of is because we are thinking about the dollars and how we want to be able to move forward and what's going to make sense. So you're trying to balance the economy of scale of doing a big buy on roofing material and making sure that you can get good competitive bids and do roofing. Likewise with mechanical projects, when you're looking at how much work can they get done. Are we going to split crews between 3 buildings, or are we going to try to do it in 1 building? So it's kind of that whole dynamic push and pull of what we're still, to this day, trying to work out and pull together to make a good sense, dollars and cents, out of these projects. We, too, are thinking the same thing that you're thinking of, to try to best spend the money that we need to have. If we don't need to do the stage at the high school, well, then we should just sand it and refinish it if it looks good. But we might have to do an ADA accessibility issue there because it's not there. So those are critical things. We're trying to look out and look at all these things and put these things together, and certainly pushing and pulling and challenging, is it in the right place? That's the right thing to do. That's the right thing for us to do. It's the right thing for you to do. So I appreciate that level of detail as we're looking at it, because I'm going to miss something maybe, and so is somebody else. But by working together here, we're going to be able to put this together. It's going to work from the Tacton.
All right, any other questions? Brenda.
I just have some comments about item 2 under here. It's a very broad resolution authorizing the administration to enter into contracts up to $500,000 without any detail at this point. And Dr. Zerbe, you mentioned that some of these jobs, the total up to this $8.5 million, many of them probably will not require any pre-planning work. That sort of suggests that there could be some huge contracts for design and so forth. And it seems to me that the board really should have an opportunity to approve large contracts. I mean, $500,000 is a big blank check, I think.
You're absolutely correct. So you will be before you each month, likely, as we move through acquiring who those professionals are. They will be before you as a contract, and Dan or a member of his team will be before you explaining what those services are and what those contracts will be for and the dollar amount. So it will be before the board.
Except that this resolution gives you the authority to do it without coming before the board. Perhaps if we change this resolution authorizing you to proceed so that you can present contracts to us, that would be helpful.
Do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, my only suggestion perhaps would be for item D2, replacing to enter into contracts with to negotiate contracts. And then the final contracts would be presented to the board for approval. So there is just to be clear to everyone, the current motion is for items D, 1, and 2 as presented. If such an amendment were desired, there would need to be just a motion and a second, and then a vote to amend the motion that is currently on the table.
I'd like to offer an amendment to the motion that's on the table.
Could you just state what go ahead.
Change item 2 to, on the second line, after master plan, to negotiate contracts as opposed to enter into contracts.
And is there a second?
Any discussion on that? Okay, roll call on that one. Ms. Reese.
Yes.
Ms. Hackett.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Sorry, I'm just confirming, we're just doing D2?
D1 and 2.
We're doing the
Amendment.
Correct.
Amendment. The amendment to D2
Yes.
is what we're voting on.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Aubrey Larsenis.
Yes.
And that's yes for me. And Mr. Phillips, the amendment?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Winters?
Yes.
And Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion on the
So any more
motion as
discussion on the
amended?
original?
I just have one more point of clarification. For D1, the $8.5 million, we are actually authorizing the exact work in the master plan document for year 1. Is that correct?
We're actually authorizing the preparation of design documents and other bidding documents. The actual authorization of the work to be done will be done once the bids are received, and there'll likely be alternates and all sorts of other, opportunities for us to include or accept certain portions of those bids and not include other portions of those bids. So we're not actually authorizing the work here this evening, but to proceed with preparing the documents to do the bids to then bring before you.
Sorry, I worded that wrong. I understand where this is just the design, right, and the document prep, but we are only considering the projects that are on this board for design.
Year 1. That's
For year
right.
one.
That's accurate.
Thank you.
That's the roadmap for year 1, basically. Correct. Any other discussion? Okay. Roll call on that. Mr. Roth.
Yes.
Mr. Winters. Sorry, I didn't hear.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Okay. Miss Aubrey Larsenis.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Ryan.
No.
Miss Hackett.
Yes.
And Miss Reese.
Yes.
The motion passes 7-1 with Mr. Ryan being the no. Okay, on to the negotiations. May I have a motion to approve the two? I'll read them. Approve the Methacton School District Board of School Directors' final best offer in accordance with PA Title 24, Section 11-1125A, as provided to the board and posted on the Methacton School District website. The board further authorizes its special counsel of Fox Rothschild to participate in the negotiated final best offer arbitration in accordance with Section 11-1125-A on an issue-by-issue basis in accordance with the stipulations reached between the Methacton School District and the Methacton Education Association. The second part of that is approve the posting of the Methacton School District Board of School Directors and the Methacton Education Association's final best offers in accordance with Section 11-1125-A and guidelines governing the provisions of public comment. May I have a motion for this? Second. Any discussion? You want
me to start?
You can start with the discussion.
Yeah. I'll start by saying a lot of hard work and many hours were spent putting this effort together by both sides, by all members at the tables. Many articles of language were discussed and significant compromises were met. But as I'm sure most people will agree, there's still more work to be done, and topics from each side need to be discussed in the future. Our final best offer is not perfect, but it does accomplish a lot. I will state that while I am in support of this offer, the offer will fiscally stretch the school district budget in years to come. This and future school boards will need to demonstrate very strong fiscal responsibility, sharpen the pencils, as you will, and form solid budgets that all taxpayers can afford. But I am pleased to present this tonight. Thank you.
Any other, Brenda? Yeah.
I do support the teachers and the educators in the district. They're vital to what happens in the classroom. Many of them have advanced degrees so that they broaden their knowledge and help our students excel. Also, they show their devotion to the students, and I know that devotion is returned by the students. We hear it, we see it from current and former students. I also know that our teachers are paid less than teachers in other nearby districts, and I would prefer that that wasn't the case. In our discussions with the union leadership, we have arrived at this proposed final best offer, which is generous beyond our means. We look at the future and we see that we have a tremendous deficit in the subsequent years, especially year 2 and year 3. And it doesn't get any better as time goes on. The amount of deficit that there is means that there will have to be hard decisions of a variety of sorts. One of the things we talked about previously was our facilities issues, which is adding another burden to our finances. If we raise taxes to the highest amount that we can under the law, we still will have a significant deficit. We cannot balance the budget that way. So I cannot be in favor of this proposed final budget, final best offer.
Thanks for sharing your comments, Brenda. Anybody else?
Chris?
Yeah.
I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about sort of the atmosphere. Sometimes actions don't necessarily reflect who people are on either side, but also can strengthen relationships. Sitting at the table, I understand the passion of the MEA, understand issues better. Under issues, hopefully the MEA understands our issues the same way. I see the staff as an influence on all children, much like we are as reflection as board members. We have an influence on our child and the broader children. But if it's taekwondo, music, soccer, everybody has an influence on our children. So every experience my individual son has gone through, from Miss Geis to Miss Fisher to Mrs. Bender to Mrs. Lasky to Mr. Haley to Mrs. Pfeiffer in the future, all outstanding professional teachers. And anything beyond that from a messaging is not from my soul, and I know that. So from a reflection of contracts, we need to make sure we understand what contracts are and what our emotions are and where we feel about each other. And hopefully this will strengthen the relationships between both the board and the MEA.
Anyone else? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, I'll just start with a question. For number 2, have we received MEA's proposal as of now in order to post to the website? I know we obviously have ours.
I have not seen it.
No.
So I haven't checked my email since I came in, but before the meeting, I had not been informed we'd received it. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
And rather than try to be more eloquent myself, I believe Mr. Winters said it perfectly. I hate what this has done to our community. It really is a shame. I equate this to, I said this actually to a Methacton teacher, that sometimes I feel like that we're trying to play one of the new kids' collaborative games, right? You got to work together. You have a desired goal. There's a vision. There's a puzzle. There's a way to work together to win. And somehow along the way, it seems like somebody forgot to tell all the parties involved, and it became about one side winning or the other side losing. And I think that's personally how we got here. And like I said, I hate the fact that we're here. I will support this. I would also say that, and I don't know the legalities behind this, Mr. Sultanic's not here, Kyle is here. You don't have to make a comment on this, but I'd still like to see us across from the table from each other. I hate that this gets to an arbitration panel. So if there's any way that we can still work together as a community, come together as a community, like Paul said, take some of the emotion out of it and just come to what's best for Methacton as a whole, I think that that would be best for all. Thanks.
Sorry, I'm a bit distracted. I'm single parenting tonight. My wife's out of town, and my kids are texting me from home. In terms of the school district and the public school district, I can speak to my own experience. My wife and I, we've been married for 26 years now. We moved here in '98. We love the township, but more importantly, we love the public school. We came here to support the public school. When I moved in '98, I didn't plan on becoming school board president. That wasn't on my bucket list of things to do. But, you know, people encouraged me to run for this, and here I am. Kids are influenced by everybody within the school district, whether it's the teachers, the administration, the volunteers. You know, I reflect back onto my childhood, and I can still think of the people that really impressed me, whether it was Mr. Gassman, the superintendent, Mrs. Wallen, my senior English teacher, Mrs. Fagerstrom, who was my bus driver from kindergarten all the way through high school, or Mr. Cessna, who to this day is the coolest person I've ever met. He was my elementary school janitor. So there's an opportunity for everybody who volunteers or is employed to be that Mr. Cessna for any of the kids. My wife and I think our kids are great, and we also give a lot of the credit to the people that work and volunteer in the school district as to why. So, you know, we feel they're great kids. So in our day-to-day worlds, that's the way we think about our school district. The challenge is that, you know, we're talking about contracts that are over a $200 million spend or cost to the school district in the next 3 years. So yes, we have to look at the detail. And these contracts are not just salary and benefit. There's page after page of detail in them. And they're a document that have been created over decades. It's not that you start with a fresh piece of paper for the upcoming contract and you put in what you would like and you agree to that. You have to work within a document that has been created over the decades. That takes time and that takes effort. I'd like to personally thank all the people that have dedicated all their time and effort into this process. It's been going on for a long time, but I think that speaks to the level of scrutiny that everybody involves looking to the document. I know the administration and the school board members and the association members who have worked in this process have dedicated a lot of time. I personally have given up more than half of my annual leave at my job as opposed to going on vacations to try to get this done. That's how dedicated I am, and I know everybody else is as dedicated. So in terms of the next steps here, I'm really hopeful that this arbitration process will come to some conclusion to this whole thing and settle on terms that everybody can agree to. Anybody else?
Yeah, Chris.
Sure, hold on. All right, Jim.
Yeah, it's, it's great to, put all the emotion into it, all the time, but the facts are the numbers. And you're asking the board to sign up for something that puts us in the hole in years 2 and 3 and beyond. We're guaranteeing not only we're going to increase taxes, but we're going to be to the point that we got to cut something to afford it. Arrowhead, programs, and we all sit there and say, we do this because of the kids, but we're going to end up closing buildings because of it. We're going to cut programs, cut jobs. Hearing about the long hours, it comes down to the numbers and the quality of life. When you go out there in the marketplace and look at the houses in Worcester. Today, looked at a house over at the Stables, 150 days on the market, started at $750. They reduced it to $660, and it still hasn't sold. And the taxes are $15,000. So people are noticing they don't come to Worcester. There's no services, that's one problem, but the taxes are huge problems. So, this contract will take your salary and benefits up over probably 70% of our budget. And then you're increasing the debt service, for the master plan and all that. There's another 10-11% of our budget. So, you got to wake up and sit there and say, well, is this really good for the kids? It's not. All it is about greed, about somebody's back pocket, their wallet. It's not about the kids. And it's not about the taxpayers that have to be able to afford to live in the darn township or the school district. So, you go down this road, but you're definitely sealing the coffin on closing Arrowhead and cutting more jobs. That's all I have to say.
All right, thanks, Jim. Any other comment? All right, let's do roll call then. Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
No.
Okay, and for me, yes. Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Miss Aubrey Larson-East?
Yes.
Miss Atkin?
No.
And Miss Reese?
Yes.
And the motion passes with, 6-2, with Ms. Hackett and Mr. Phillips being the 2 noes. Okay, thank you. The next item is for the school calendar. May I have a motion to approve the 2017-2018 school calendar adjustments as presented? Second? Any discussion? Okay. Roll call. Ms. Reese?
Yes.
Ms. Hackett?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Miss Aubrey Larson-East?
Yes.
And yes for me. Mr. Phillips?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Thank you. All right. In terms of dates for the calendars, we have the Education Committee coming up on the 2nd, Policy Committee coming up on the 4th, Property Committee coming up on the 9th, the Finance Committee on the 11th, the Board Work Session on the 17th, and the Board Meeting on the 24th. And we're planning on the Board Meeting on the 24th to be at Arcola because of the M Awards, correct? All right. Any old business?
Yeah, can I just, I don't know where it fits, so apologize.
I'll put it in here, that's fine.
Can somebody give an update on Power School, please?
Do we have? I don't know what type of update you're looking for.
There's a Power School update, I believe, scheduled for the Education Committee this coming month.
Any other old business? Okay. Moving on to new business. We have the PSBA officer election. The first one is to approve a candidate, Dave Hutchinson or Otto Voigt III, as president-elect for a one-year term. May I have a nomination?
Yes. I'd like to nominate David Hutchinson.
Is there a second?
You don't need a second, just are there
Okay.
any other nominations?
Are there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Otto Voigt.
Okay. We've nominated them both. All right. All those in favor of Dave Hutchinson?
So you can actually do a roll call, and each individual will indicate who they are voting for
Okay.
of the nominated
Thank you.
candidates.
Thank you, Kyle. So choose Hutchinson or Boyd.
Hutchinson.
Okay.
Voigt.
Hutchinson.
Kim?
Kim, are you still there?
Yeah, sorry, Hutchinson.
Okay, I'm going to vote for Hutchinson. Jim?
What are my options again?
Hutchinson and Voigt?
Yep. Hutchinson.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
Hutchinson.
Okay. Herb?
Voigt.
Okay. Then the motion carries for Dave Hutchinson. Approve candidate Eric Wolfgang or Gary Michael Smedley as vice president for a one-year term. Nominations?
I'd like to nominate Eric Wolfgang.
Any others? You want, okay, we have one for Smedley. Okay, so we'll just do roll call and please name Ms. Reese.
Wolfgang.
Ms. Hackett?
Wolfgang.
Okay. Mr. Ryan?
Wolfgang.
Ms. Aubrey Larson-East?
Wolfgang.
And I vote Wolfgang, and Jim, we already know you're Smedley, correct? And that...
You should say that.
You should say that.
Okay, Smedley.
Thank you. Paul?
Wolfgang.
Okay.
Wolfgang.
And Eric Wolfgang passes with 7 votes. All right, so we have one candidate for the treasurer. Can I have somebody approve the candidate, Mike Gossert? All right. Roll call. Andrea?
Gossert.
Brenda?
Gossert.
Mike?
Gossert.
Kim?
Gossert.
I approve it as well. Jim?
Gossett.
Mike, or Paul?
Gossert, can we take the last two together, please?
Herb?
Gossert.
Take the last two to... So they're both for the insurance trust trustee. Okay. Will somebody approve both candidates for the trust and trustee? Yes, okay, good. All those in favor, so the vote is to approve the both candidates. Andrea?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Yes. For Jim and
Yes.
I?
Yes.
All right. Okay, thanks, Jim. All right, we got all through that. Now it is on to courtesy of the floor.
Just a quick one here.
Yes.
I'm going to lose Kim on my phone here. Does it matter in terms, Kyle, since she was here for all voting items, does she need to be here for courtesy of the floor?
No, in the event that an attendee via electronic communication has lost, the meeting continues, and all action taken up to that point is valid.
It's still valid.
Yes.
Kim, do you want someone else to call you for courtesy of the floor so you can hear it?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Andrea will call you.
Jim, you going to hang on for courtesy of the floor?
I'll hang out.
Okay. All right, then let's move ahead to courtesy of the floor. Candy, it's all you first.
Candy Alaba, Iggleville. I know you tabled about the traffic study for the two campuses. I'd like to make a couple suggestions, since I was very actively involved when they decided to put the traffic light at Arcola. The light was put in mainly to control the traffic, at the expense of the residents. The traffic patterns at Arcola were laid out that way because of the traffic light. There is a PennDOT traffic study that's maybe 7, 8 years old. It was done for the traffic light. You might want to look at that. But before you move forward, the traffic has gotten steadily worse when transportation became an issue. I'm directly affected by the traffic on Iggleville Road. Middle School Drive has been there for 45 years. It's never been open to the public. Two roads, the main road going into Arcola was opened specifically because of traffic light. The old entrance was left open, which is now an exit. The one on the other side by the football field was closed down. This was because of the traffic. That was supposed to decrease the traffic on Iggleville Road, the light. My suggestion is, instead of paying $200,000 to open a road that will not ease your traffic, why don't you spend the money to put in a left turn signal at the campus? You have a left turn lane. The previous superintendent didn't want to spend the extra money because PennDOT does not pay for that. That is an expense by the school district. You get 1 or 2 buses in that left lane, that traffic backs all the way down Iggleville Road. If there's cars coming the opposite way, they don't have a chance of turning in left. And the kids sit on the bus. A left turn light can be installed, there's space for it. It can be timed to let a certain amount of cars go through. That light is timed. At night when the school is closed, if there is no traffic coming out of the school on Arcola Road, that light on Iggleville Road stays green all night long. It doesn't change till it's tripped. So I would suggest maybe someone talk to PennDOT and see what the expense is. But in opening a road that's been sitting there for 45 years, they didn't want to open it 10 years ago. But you have a very simple solution. And instead of spending $10,000 for traffic studies, my other suggestion, put this one-way signs back to the way they originally were for 50 years. Someone, I don't know whose decision it was, to change the traffic pattern here at the high school. But since then, it's been a mess. Put it back the original pattern that it has. And again, as has been stated, you have issues with traffic because you can't settle your transportation issues. In 2014, we didn't have this problem. Each year it's gotten worse. So I think you need, instead of spending a lot of money, there is simple solutions. Or maybe, how about if the transportation department or somebody in the school district decides to go back to the original bus routes before we sold out the first student? Because most of those bus routes haven't changed because Lower Providence and Worcester haven't changed. So maybe clearer heads have to prevail. But before you make any movement to open a road, find out what it would cost for a left turn light. You might have to talk to the township because they took over, how do I want to say this, indemnification for the traffic light. And at one time I had all the studies and reports. Fortunately, they disappeared from my own. But I dealt with PennDOT directly in an all-day hearing about that traffic light. There's only one other person in the room that was at that hearing to keep from that traffic light from going in. But remember, that was put in specifically to lessen the traffic. It has gotten worse. Look into a left turn light before you look into opening road. That might ease your problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Deborah Cherry, Worcester librarian. Thank you, Ms. Reese, and Mrs. Cancro, she's watching, for those kind words. Coincidentally, I had already had a few to share with you all. I wanted to speak to you tonight to give you a quick look at what I do as a math acting teacher. I've been with Methacton for 11 years. I have 2 education-related masters and a bunch of others, and I'm on salary step 8. As an elementary librarian, I have the opportunity and privilege to work with every student in our building. As with many educators, I want to prepare our kids for successful, productive, and happy futures. So in addition to our regular library curriculum, encompassing great literature, digital literacy, and library skills, I try to offer engaging opportunities to work on the 21st century skills that they'll need: creativity, communication, collaboration, critical thinking. I've started programs outside of the classroom hours. Things like Worcester's participation in the International Cardboard Challenge. Will be participating for the 3rd time this year. We've created a makerspace funded with donations, grants, and the generous support of our Home and School for our students to visit on Maker Mondays. Home and School now runs that program. Exciting programming is happening throughout our buildings. My colleagues in the classroom are also working incredibly hard to create engaging, innovative lessons that marry the curriculum with the actual skills our students need to succeed. And in elementary schools across the district, you'll find special area and other teachers offering extracurricular programming. Things like art clubs, chorus, chimes, orchestra, sports, chess, reading Olympics, homework club, PA club, environmental club, and many others. At Worcester, we formed a lunchtime coding club to participate in a special 1-month-long competition. After school, I hold Crazy 8 math clubs, which is way out of my comfort zone, and then there are our tech clubs. We have robotics, coding, digital storytelling, all sorts of things going on. Once I get everything up and running, I expect to have 1 math and 2 tech clubs after school each week. Unfortunately, for years, there has been no money made available for new after-school clubs. I receive $411 for a once-a-week tech club, yet I run 3 clubs per week. I'm telling you this so you'll understand why I am so hurt when Methacton teachers are described as greedy, selfish, thinking only of ourselves and not the larger community. I actually feel like a bit of a doormat when I think of all the work I do for the district for free. But then I remind myself that I'm doing it for my students. One last thing I'd like to mention. As I sat in the audience at this meeting, I've heard board members inquiring about teachers that have resigned, wondering whether they'd left teaching or only changed districts. I've already mentioned that I'm on step 8. I always assumed if I left Methacton and got bumped back down to step 1, it would take a while to work my way back up. On Friday, I received a job posting for a district that borders Methacton. Imagine my surprise when I saw that step 1 for my education level, step 1, is more than $5,000 more than I am earning on step 8. Perhaps that answers some of your questions about educators leaving Methacton. As you continue working through the negotiations process, I hope you consider what Methacton teachers do each and every day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else for public comment? John.
Good evening, John Andrews. At last week's working session meeting, there were 2 presentations. There was no slideshow, and subsequent to the meeting, there were no PDFs of either of those presentations. And I looked back a ways, and the last presentations that are posted on the Methacton website are from April. So there's have to believe there've been some presentations that, where there were decisions made that the public doesn't have to have them available. And I think that, is that because we've got contract negotiations, keep people in the dark, or any one of another dozen speculations? I just don't know. There was a couple articles in this Sunday's Times Herald about Methacton varsity football this year. One of the articles was just the game statistics, quarter by quarter. The other article was by a reporter that quoted Paul Dupre, the coach, saying that a handful of seniors quit basically at the beginning of the season. And I think, maybe I don't need to know the reasons for why they quit, but I think it might be helpful in the long run to school directors to know what those are. Maybe exit interviews or something. Football has its difficulties if anyone watches any of a dozen issues with the NFL, whether it's a $2.6 billion stadium, or the NCAA, or CTE, or where they stand with regard to the American flag. If some people here are saying there's too much athletics, maybe it's too much NFL. Yet when it comes to STEM and test scores and things like that, there's a preponderance in Methacton relative to academics for certain ethnic groups to excel, even though they're a minority of 20% or less. So I don't mean to be critical of the teachers when I say that. We have only so many science teachers, but there aren't enough candidates for all the science jobs that we have in the country, and so we need balance in what we teach.
Can you please finish up?
Yes.
Thank you.
With regard to the renovations, I made some comments that went out to directors yesterday, and I guess I wasted my time. And I guess some of that is because it's late in the process for getting good bids next year, and to get good bids on that work needs documents prepared, et cetera, et cetera. With regard to closing a school, I have to take Mr. Phillips' comments at face value that we're entering into labor contracts that limit the quality of our education or the quality of our school facilities unless we cut back on staffing, such as at the high school. And of course, tied into that is enrollment projections, which are...
Please finish up.
Yes. The other thing is that we had the turf fields closed down recently, and there was a document from the superintendent about turf cleaning. Well, the Synthetic Turf Council has guidelines for maintenance. They don't really get into cleaning. They get into all kinds of
Mr.
grooming.
Andrews, I've asked you twice to please finish up, and you've gone an additional 2 minutes. So
So I I wonder why we don't have our own grooming machine. I wonder why is there anyone that inspects the fields? Maybe the fields needed grooming 6 months ago, and they got so bad that we had to close them down at the start of school. So I think there's a variety of things to be decided, and we have lean administrative staff. Perhaps we really need an assistant superintendent because there's so much work here to be done, and it affects things big time. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes.
Hi, my name is Erin Ranieri. I am from Collegeville. I have 2 students at Arrowhead, and I have been here for 16 years in the high school math department. I moved here not for a short ride to work, but instead for my children to be a part of an excellent school district. However, in recent years, I've been a little worried about our school district. I've seen many of my colleagues go and rush into administrative positions over the years while looking at the salary schedule and realizing that it was going to take them 10 years to make any real money. I think they would have actually preferred to stay as teachers for a longer time. That concerns me, but also in the past couple of years, I've seen 4 teachers, strong and experienced teachers, leave the high school. And I don't know how many people are aware of that. 3 of these teachers were actually coaches that we are also losing or might lose next year. These are all people that I would have loved for my children to actually have and have experience with. And I think it's hurting us that we have lost those 4 people. There's other people that have their resumes out there right now. They tell me all the time they can't wait any longer to get to step 12. So they have resumes out there. It's something I wanted to bring to the public's attention because I'm out talking to my neighbors, and not many people know this. Not many people know how many people are actually leaving. It's been generally mentioned, but I'd love to see all of the numbers, not just my building. We have all these new things. We have Chromebooks. We have an ELA program, a Math in Focus program. We have Power School. None of these things matter to me as much, though, as who's standing in front of my children day after day. And I really think that we need to do something to not only attract great, new, educated young teachers, but to keep them here at Methacton and not to, send them off after we give them the experience, sending them to North Penn and Boyertown and Lower Merion. We're really losing out, and I just wanted it to be on record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Liz Kamenetz, Lower Providence. I think it's interesting that Mrs. Ranieri, my daughter's math teacher last year, and Deb Cherry, my friend and colleague, I'm a former library media specialist myself, brought up exactly what I researched this week, which was teacher retention and teacher attrition. So just some information that I learned this week, that teacher retention is one of the strongest hallmarks of a strong school district, and teacher attrition is a flashing neon sign of dysfunction. Teacher attrition is costly to taxpayers and is strongly correlated with lower rates of student achievement, particularly in language arts and math. Schools with a high rate of teacher retention have a number of positive outcomes, such as the ability to plan for continuous improvement and the increased collegiality that is correlated with higher job satisfaction and better test scores. In short, schools where teachers stay in their jobs for long periods of time are better places to work and better places to learn. So why do teachers leave? Well, the research suggests 2 reasons: low morale and low salaries. My personal experience bears this out. I spent 8 years as a classroom teacher in the state of Virginia. After 8 years of working on average 50 to 60 hours a week, I was expecting my first child, and my salary did not cover the cost of childcare. That's when I quit. Hardworking teachers like me quit across the country every single year. Methacton has been an exception, and thanks to that, we have a highly skilled professional staff, many of whom have 10, 20, some with more than 30 years in the classroom. When Methacton stops being an attractive place for teachers to work, our school quality suffers. When Methacton stops being an attractive place to live, our tax base and property values will suffer. Lather, rinse, repeat.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn? Second. Do I need to do roll call? No. All those in favor? All right. Thanks for hanging in there, Jim and Kim on the phone. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Appreciate it.